you're not understanding or
What is
not
happening?
understanding. I
What
don't mean
the
to
fuck, Bernina?
say it in
My
a condescending
god.
way. I don't mean like that. I just mean like you're not engaging with this idea that Israel will never give up its state short of all-out war and violence.
It's not about Israel giving up its state. It's about Israel dissolving the apartheid structure and allowing Palestinians to also be a part of its democratic
So
process.
then that's what
And
I
I
go
do
back
understand that
to.
there is an appetite. I do understand that there is no appetite in Israel whatsoever from the 75th century population, especially in doing such a thing. I totally get that. There's two considerations here, or three actually. One is the moral one. I think you and I both agree that that is like that would be a good thing, right? Ending the apartheid would be a good thing. The
Yes,
second
we agree.
consideration is a matter of international law, and the last one is obviously what this would look like in practice. So when I talk about the morality of the situation, I think you and I are both in agreement. But when we're talking about it in a practical application, you have concerns, but concerns that revolve around Israel not wanting to do this and fighting against it tooth and nail,
It
right?
will never. They will
Yeah,
literally. It will never happen.
I completely understand what you're saying. I agree that as it stands currently, that the Israeli government would refuse to do this. The Israeli population
Well,
would
yeah,
not
the
be
people,
receptive.
everybody.
Yeah, the Israeli population would not be receptive
Yeah.
to it. Ultimately, it still it still doesn't change the reality that this would be an ethno state, and there's pressure campaigns that could work from the international community that could sway
Like
the
what?
Israeli.
'Cause I don't think, dude.
One of
You
the
can.
best
It doesn't
examples of
matter
this.
whatever sanctions you can dream of. You're not gonna convince Israel to dissolve their borders. You know, you have to like. And again, I'm not justifying. I'm not defending anyone. I'm only speaking pragmatically about where do we start talking about this conversation of peace.
Okay,
You know, another thing you have to understand is that a ton of the Israeli population are people who escaped the Holocaust, and when they came down there, they bring generations of paranoia and persecution, and so there is, I believe, a widespread belief held by nearly every Israeli that if the borders would dissolve, if the borders would come down, there would be a massive genocide against Jews, and that they believe that, and I don't know necessarily to what extent that might be true, but I can tell you for sure that that's what they hear when they think one state is basically a bunch of Israelis being massacred.
um,
That's what they hear. That's what they see, and that's why it will never happen.
okay. So the paranoia that people have, or Holocaust survivors have, especially, is I guess important for the practical application of the matter, but I'll give you an example of like the government moving in a direction that the people actually don't want the government to move in at the behest of the United States. So, um, or even sometimes moving in the direction that people don't want it to move in, but then still engaging in it. Like the rapid settlement expansion is something that is often contentious and has been very contentious throughout time. Government doesn't really factor into considerations like what the broader liberal Israeli society thinks about the matter. They just keep building the fucking settlements and populating these areas, right? And the opposite has happened as well. At a time when, according to the Israeli Democratic Institute polling, I believe like what 80% of the Israeli Jewish population believes that there's no need to consider Palestinian lives in the last siege in Gaza. Um, the government has taken steps that some people would find to be inappropriate in opening up humanitarian corridors so that you can bring in supplies. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant was asked the question in in the aftermath of the first day of the Rafah border opening so that they could bring in trucks and trucks of supplies into Gaza. They were asked, "Why are you doing this?" To which Yoav Gallant responded with, "What can I do? America told me I have to do this." In
Right? That
2021, Joe Biden
you got,
called up
dude,
Netanyahu. What's
dude,
up?
letting humanitarian aid through Rafah crossing, comparing that to dissolving your sovereign border. Come on.
No, of course, it's not. It's not a one-to-one comparison at all. I'm simply stating that
A
something as
1 to a
minor as
trillion
that,
comparison.
something as minor as that, all the way to, all the way to ending a siege is entirely up to the United States and what the United States is letting Israel do and allowing it to do.
What pressure could the United States exert over Israel that would be so powerful that they would say we have to dissolve our country?
First of all, I don't believe that this would be a dissolvement of Israel as a nation state. It would simply allow the Palestinians that are currently under occupation to be also a part of the democratic process. And it also would not happen overnight either. But if you're asking me the question, it's sanctions. It's the shutting
what?
off the money faucet. It's shutting off bombs. I mean, we were just looking at it. You said you were watching the stream earlier, so you probably saw this already. But like, we shipped two different, I think, mobile. We shipped two different mobile Iron Dome trucks into Israel. We are consistently shipping in Mark 84 rockets into Israel so that they can directly use this on the offensive. By the way, like this is not even a defensive weapon that they have. This is specifically so they can engage in offensive posturing in the Gaza Strip. So without America's involvement, Israel would not be able to behave in the ways that it has so far. America could just as easily tomorrow, with one phone call, turn on, call Bibi Netanyahu and say, enough, cut it out, you're done. Joe Biden has done this in 2021. Even Ronald Reagan has done this in the past. George W. Bush has done this, or George H.W. Bush, sorry. So we have a lot more say on what Israel gets to do than vice versa.
So your statement is that if America stops selling Israel bombs and arms, then
Not just
they
that.
will I say dissolve the country because again, that's how the people in Israel are going to view this. It won't be the same place, for them, and to them, their security is paramount.
We're not selling the weapons, brother. We're just giving them weapons.
Okay, so you don't think that Israel could get bombs from other places? Is-
Certainly, but Israel is our ally, and Israel relies a tremendous amount on U.S. aid, right? To the tune of $4 billion, but also Israel engages in a lot of trade. For example, in 2013, Israel was offering weapon schematics, U.S. weapons to China. America stopped that, right? So, like, Israel does have global partnerships, but many of those global partnerships are still almost entirely managed by the United States. So, the way I see Israel is not necessarily like an independent nation state, but simply like an American state, a very important state too, like not like fucking Montana, like an actual American state that Americans care about. You know, more like New York.
we love the people from Montana. We kid them, but we love them.
But so for that reason, America has complete control over Israel's trade relationships. Obviously, there are obviously times when some Israeli actions will over leverage or overextend itself that like Americans will get mad at, but ultimately they're still fine with it. Like Pegasus. Are you familiar
Yeah, I
with
mean,
Pegasus is?
yeah, of course. And Israel, and I'm sure there's lots of other countries that would happily love to use that in exchange for any fucking thing that Israel wanted, if there was
Yeah.
to be their ties to be severed.
Yeah, so like America has been very critical of the Pegasus software, right? Like because it's so invasive, the surveillance technology, and yet America also uses Pegasus. So like it's more so, it's almost always this like, hey guys, don't do that, and like finger wagging publicly while simultaneously, helping Israel
I
continue
think
doing whatever it's doing. It's beneficial
America's
to us.
influence over Israel is great, but
I think it's absolute.
I mean, Israel was fighting to defend itself before America gave a fuck about the region. So I don't see. I genuinely think that it will never happen. Even if America was like, I'm cutting your aid, this relationship is over unless you open the borders and create this new state.
I think
be
before
no,
before
would
America
never
it was the
happen.
British. Before America, I think it was the British, and
No,
there were
after the British were gone, after the Palestinian Mandate, and the British said, "Fuck this, I don't want to deal with this shit." The Jews were fighting to defend their themselves and their new place in that area from the very beginning, with no help from anybody.
That's not. I mean, that's not true. They were shipping in weapons. Even under British occupation, they were still shipping in weapons
This is
illicitly.
after British occupation. I'm talking about like
But also, but also,
1948. Who was supporting Israel in 1948?
so the Haganah, Irgun, and Lehi brigades that were at that point almost always considered like a standing army during the Nakba were fighting against predominantly villagers with like that had been disarmed by the British. The Zionist brigades at that point, even before England pulled out, even before the British pulled out, were being trained by the British forces, while the other side was being disarmed by the British forces. That's why there was an asymmetry to the violence even then. Over the course of the years, but specifically during the Nakba as well, 6,000 Israelis died, whereas 15,000 Arabs died, with 750,000 Arabs being Palestinians being expelled from their homes. The reason for why this happened wasn't because you had rugged fighters or whatever. I mean, they were great fighters too, but it was also because it was a broadly civilian population that was being slaughtered, and by a militia force that was trained, had weapons, had even a plane, had armored personnel carriers, whatever it looked like back then, and had much better weapons as well. So
I mean, listen, what this stuff is just not comparable. I mean, if you look at the United States during 1948, there was an arms embargo during the time.
yeah, and they sent in illicit weapons into Israel regardless. That's what I was talking about. They got it from France, and they got it from many other areas.
Can you provide a source on that? Because that's
Yeah.
not how I understand it went down.
Okay.
I
Yeah, I can
understand that
provide
they
you a
got
source.
some help and weapons from like Czechoslovakia was selling them rifles and shit,
Yeah.
selling it to them. You know what I mean? There wasn't a
Yeah.
lot of countries that were willing to sell them anything, but
But
Czechoslovakia was one.
yeah, there was an arms embargo, which meant that they were acquiring illicit weapons. Yes, this is true. From
Jako
many
slova
different,
si
many
pomohli
different
tak,
countries.
ty vole.
However,
Nejsem
beyond that, they also had
překvapený.
access to British arms as well. That's why they had like armored personnel
Ten
carriers.
druhý, co mluví, ne,
tanks.
ten, co mluví teď, tak to
Not
je
many,
shit.
but ultimately you were
A
fighting
myslím,
against
že
a
dokonce
civilian
pochází
population
z
that was
Izraele, když teď
completely
bydlí v
attacked
Americe.
regardless.
I mean, the Egyptian army was
Vidíš, on je jakoby
considered one of the
velice
best at the time of that war.
dobrá představa na to, jak by Židi reagovali na jakoukoliv
But
Why? Because they lost, but they were.
Židi
I
v
mean, they
Izraeli,
were
jak by
considered one of
reagovali
the
na
best
jakoukoliv
armies in the world, which
představu
is why
míry.
the war was so thought to be like, oh, this is going to be an easy dub for the Arab country.
I don't think that they were. I do not think that they were a like a really good standing army at all. I think that
Based on what?
the overarching. I don't know if you're talking about 1948 or if you're talking about 1967.
48. I'm talking about 1948 war.
Okay, there was no. I think there is a little bit of confusion with what you're saying, because what you're describing sounds like 1967, because in 1948, like the Egyptian army that you're referencing in 1948 is not like a serious one.
No, I'm talking 1948. I think Egypt was considered like a military power, especially in the region, and a fairly well-trained army. But I think we're kind of, to go back to the original point. So I don't want to drift too far off topic here. Is that Israel, if it has to, will definitely go its own way before it dissolve its borders. Like I hope, I really want people to understand how impossible, how that will never ever happen. And again, not defending them. I'm not justifying anything. I'm just speaking pragmatically. You have a people who are coming from this systemic genocide coming, and getting their own borders here, right or wrong. Again, just being pragmatic. They have a massive, well-trained standing army of the whole country. They have nuclear bombs. They're fucking crazy, dude. They will, and they do believe that dissolving the borders would be a second genocide. They believe that, all of them, almost all of them, I'd say. And so you have to reckon with this reality that with the one state, it's impossible.
I understand it, and that's why I said it's not going to happen overnight. It's not like, all right, everybody, like it's a one state now. Like that's not how this works, right? But a international commitment in the exact opposite direction has to happen, and it has not happened thus far.
Well, then a good question even then is like, do you ever even think that's possible before we can even get to the idea that, we need to exert pressure on Israel from foreign forces?
I think that there's a reason why there is a steady flow of propaganda into the Western world that the Israel Foreign Ministry cares about a lot, because they want to maintain a posture that is broadly supported by the Western world. And I think that dam has been breaking since 2021, once like B'Tselem, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch also all officially declared Israel to be an apartheid state. In my opinion, it was decades late, but yes, over time, as the brutality of this regime continues to get worse and worse, more and more people will, in my opinion, keep continuously protesting Israel's actions, and will push for more, push to get Western leadership to pull support away, and ultimately even move in the direction of sanctions. This
what kind of timeline are we thinking here?
I'm not entirely. I don't know. I don't know how long this will take, but I won't stop fighting for it.
It doesn't go on that long. It sounds like that's a really long plan.
Well, there's not really. I mean, the inverse of this is also a really long plan, and the really long plan revolves around Israel continuing to slowly but surely engage in pogroms in the West Bank, turn a blind eye to it, or directly arm the settlers like Itamar Ben-Gvir has been doing, and continue to push Palestinians in the West Bank further and further away, with the ultimate goal of maintaining an ethnic cleansing and ethnic displacement campaign in parts of Gaza, maybe even annex further and further, because everybody fully understands that there's no way to eradicate not just Hamas, but just a means of violent resistance against an apartheid, right? So if it's not Hamas, then it's Hamas too, right? Hamas in and of itself was not a real entity that was even remotely popular in its formation, moving away from a charity group, an Islamic charity group that literally was getting funding from Israel as well, to an actual militant group in 1988, to one that switched over to start using suicide bombs on civilian targets in the aftermath of 1994.
The one thing I learned about Hamas, because it's easy to look at Israel and look at all the obstructionists to peace. I mean, Rabin, I think it was Rabin that was executed, right, by a fucking psychotic. And they were so close. They were so close to peace. But Hamas actually rose to prominence in opposition to the PLO peace talks. That is why they came out, is literally to derail the peace talks.
So and they went out. You're right. You're absolutely right about that.
They went out and they started suicide bombing cafes and buses on a weekly basis, a daily basis, and they were successful, frankly. So Hamas, from their inception, has their singular goal is to not have peace, but to basically, there's no compromise for them. It's only kill everybody there, remove them all. You know what I mean?
So let me explain this to you. This is actually, we are very close to having the exact same understanding of the situation. So the reason why I brought up Hamas and its founding charter in 1988, which is like expel all the Jews, like kill all the Jews, or whatever the fuck they said, like the radical, violent shit that they said in their founding charter, is because Hamas, out of all of the militant factions that some were violently resisting against the Israeli occupation, some of which were actually interested in a peaceful solution, like the one that you just mentioned with Yitzhak Rabin, the PLO, Yasser Arafat, the official recognition that that there was peace negotiations that would finally feature Palestinian voices at the table, changed a lot of Palestinians' minds on the issue. So Oslo in and of itself was already a non-starter agreement, in my opinion. A lot of Palestinians felt like that was fucked up. Like the conditions that were offered in Oslo were completely inconsiderate to the needs and demands that Palestinians were making. However, the two-state solution in that time frame, going from Oslo to Camp David, is directly responsible for Hamas gaining more prominence amongst the Palestinian population, never really being anywhere near close to the level of popularity that Yasser Arafat enjoyed in the first elections that happened, which was an 83% governing mandate, unimaginable popularity, which to me signals that the Palestinians were always on board with believing that Israel would offer them a favorable negotiation, and yet time and time again, every single Israeli government, every single negotiations committee utilized the two-state solution, dangling it like a carrot, simultaneously offering very little to the Palestinians, having red lines that were considered non-starters for Israel, like Israel's own demographic concerns, while maintaining while simultaneously expanding rapidly and partitioning off different parts of the West Bank, which was occupied territory. So from the eyes of the Palestinians, they saw this as yet another instance where, okay, well, we're trying to negotiate with Israel. Yasser Arafat is trying to negotiate with Israel, and yet they're not giving us anything. They keep pushing us. They keep blocking and pushing, and using this as a means to continuously build settlements and continue pushing out Palestinians in the West Bank. And that's precisely what happened over this decade, multiple decades long process. So I do not fault Palestinians for looking at the situation and thinking, well, what the fuck are we supposed to do? Another turning point was obviously the Israel pulling out of Lebanon. This was another pivotal moment where a lot of Palestinians were like, okay, well, Hezbollah violently resisted Israeli occupation, and that occupation became too costly for Israel, so they had to pull out. Meanwhile, on the other hand, we are still occupied, and our leaders are trying to work with Israel, and the leaders that are trying to work with Israel have been given weapons, have been given training, and then they use those weapons and that training to maintain some semblance of civil governance, but that civil governance isn't actually real civil governance. It's simply being used against Palestinians. So that is the reason why Yasser Arafat's influence waned over the course of this multiple decades long process, where everyone saw him as an incredibly corrupt figure by the end of it, and were looking for any other option that would possibly offer them real emancipation, real results. The goal for both Hamas and any other violent movement has never been to, like, wipe out every Jewish person around the world or whatever. And it's always to make this occupation as costly as possible. This does not mean that they're good guys. I would not say that. I do not agree with Hamas. I think that their actions were very brutal, especially on October 7th. Okay? But having said all of that, the goal always is for them to make this occupation as costly as possible so that Israel cannot maintain it.
Right. But again, without drawing conclusions about who's right and who's wrong. Broadly, I agree with the Palestinians. I think it's worth saying in terms of them being fucked over, obviously the hardest, and being the most entitled to peace and reparations and lands and stuff. But again, um, I really, so okay. Let's go back. So Hamas was created in opposition. You say the peace talks back then were wasn't even realistic. So
Yeah.
this is during the most magnanimous time in Israel's history, where everybody thought peace was possible, and even the beloved prime minister, who was considered a dove, was this was the offer. And so again, not good enough. However,
Well, yeah. Well,
there's
also the dove himself was
hold
like
on,
still,
hold on.
you know, he was.
However,
Okay.
however, looking out now, I'm just being real. Like, you have to see how impossible it is. It's just a non-starter. It's just a non-starter with Israel. It will just never, ever, ever happen. And another question I have to ask you, I guess, going along is like, do you think a lasting peace is possible while Hamas is in power?
I think that in order for Hamas to actually be dealt with appropriately and for it to no longer exist, the major goal of Hamas needs to be eviscerated, which is a secular democratic republic would completely destroy any kind of legitimate need for violent emancipation. It's over at that point. There's no, like, without
So
the
you're
apartheid, there's no
you're
reason for
saying
any of this to exist.
you're saying if they lift the blockade, Hamas will just dissolve.
Hamas, in and of itself, is already not a very popular entity, both in Gaza, but I guess ironically a little bit more popular in the West Bank as years have passed by. The only group that is less popular than Hamas in the eyes of Palestinians, however, is the Palestinian Authority. To me, this is Israel's arrogance, the way that the Israeli governments under Netanyahu and under even more peaceful, supposedly more dovish leadership like even Ehud Barak, the Palestinian Authority has always been used as a part of the Israeli security apparatus. The Palestinian Authority collaborates with the Israeli government. They actually give up resistance members. They literally give up random Palestinians to the Israeli government so they can be unlawfully detained. This, of course, has created in the minds of Palestinians a anger towards like the one group that is supposed to be collaborating with Israel. Israel had every opportunity throughout this time frame to show that the secular Fatah party was actually not simply a cutout that is simply there to oppress Palestinians, but with a Palestinian face, but instead like offered genuine security assurances, genuine security commitments, and a good faith interest in like not continuously expanding in the West Bank. But they didn't do that. They did the exact opposite, dangling the two-state solution as a carrot while simultaneously continuing on with their expansive policies in the West Bank.
I don't believe you answered the question. Do you think a lasting peace is possible while Hamas is in power?
Hamas will not be in power if there is lasting peace. That's my point.
Okay. So you're saying, well, no. The lasting peace doesn't come first. First, you have to deal with Hamas.
You cannot deal with Hamas by bombing Gaza. You can only deal with it in a political. It's a political problem.
So
Hamas is.
But how do you do politics with a terrorist group like Hamas?
Well, Israel has done politics with Hamas many times over. There has been ceasefires in between, time and time again. So that's not even a like. Even if we're having this conversation,
Well, doing a
Israel itself has
ceasefire
been able
is,
to.
first of all, agreeing to a humanitarian ceasefire.
No, not even a not. I'm not talking about like a humanitarian pause. I'm talking like ceasefires in between different sieges that have occurred into Gaza.
Okay, the ceasefire is different from having a peace partner. Right.
A ceasefire is different than having a peace partner, but that is one form of negotiations, is what I mean.
Okay,
And
so
also, not only that,
it's such a big difference. You can't. I don't think it's fair to say that Hamas
I mean,
would be
there's
a good
more-
partner
there's
in
more-
peace with Israel. You think
there's-
Hamas would be a good partner in peace with Israel?
no, I do not. I do not
Okay.
believe that Hamas would be a good peace partner with Israel. I also do not believe Israel is a good peace partner for Palestinians in general. I think that is the
We
most
agree.
important
We
part of that.
agree. We
So,
agree.
so
But
here's
again,
the
my
thing. But here's the
thesis-
thing. Hamas
My
in and of
thesis,
itself.
just again to draw it back to that, is that the one-state solution will never happen, and starting from there is a non-starter. That's my thesis. But go ahead about
Okay.
Hamas.
So here is what is important to understand. and this is not just my assessment, this is the assessment of the likes of Norm Finkelstein as well. And it's backed by actual sentiment expressed by Likud party members, but of course Benjamin Netanyahu too. Hamas's and its existence as a violent Islamist fundamentalist cutout greatly benefits thwarting any kind of Palestinian nation-state project. This is not my design. This is the design of the Israeli government. This is something that Benjamin Netanyahu has openly mentioned time and time again as well. Last time around in 2019, where he said, if you want to thwart a Palestinian nation statehood, what you must do is only govern against Hamas, because everyone sees them as terrorists. Everyone sees them as violent Islamist fundamentalist terrorists, and we can always deal with Hamas because we control how high the flames go.
Who else is there to talk to?
There are plenty of first of all, there are actual leaders within the Palestinian movement that you could prop up, like the Palestinian Authority, instead of utilizing Fatah as
That's what that's what they want to do, but like, I mean,
no, they don't want to do that either.
they want to. I think the goal is to remove Hamas and install the Palestinian Authority. But
yes, but
I
Palestinian
don't
Authority is
think
deeply unpopular and is seen as a
the
puppet of the
the
Israeli
Gazans
government.
will not accept the PLO because they'll look like stooges to the Israeli government.
Yes, because they are. They are the stooges
So
of the
then
Israeli
who? So
government.
then who is leading these? So if the wall is lifted up,
Uh-huh.
so who's in charge? Is it Hamas? Is it the PLO? How how is this happening? What?
At this stage, before the walls are lifted up or anything, what needs to happen is a ceasefire, okay? So that there can be an actual continued negotiation to release the hostages, right? That's number one. First and foremost, hostages need to be released. So first you need to do a ceasefire. Then you need to do a prisoner swap, a hostage release for the
I think you're starting too
Palestinians that are-
far back. Let's just
Okay.
go to the point where
Okay.
you know what I mean.
And
that
then
we're doing
beyond
Yeah.
that, what needs to happen is, just like it happened in 2006, which was genuinely disastrous, even though it was a Bush-backed election. Elections need to take place and Palestinians need to get security assurances from the state of Israel. Israel has to show good faith for the first time since its inception, so that Palestinians can have a normal political process and be able to actually vote for a group of individuals that would lead them in civil governance without worrying, without becoming a militant faction. In this process, I do not believe that it would be Hamas that wins out. Most Palestinians do not consider Hamas to be good at civil governance in general. They are not as popular as Israel makes it seem they are. They're simply the only option the Palestinians seemingly have in retaliating violently against Israel in times when Israel violates the ceasefire protocols by doing a steady maintenance of the apartheid structure that it maintains. Anytime Sheikh Jarrah is raided, anytime Al-Aqsa is raided every year, anytime there's a Flag Day protest that occurs in Jerusalem, like, these are all incredibly violent expressions of the apartheid regime deliberately turning around and stoking the fires in the West Bank against people that have no legal recourse, against people that are led under military mandate.
I agree with everything you're saying.
And
But to go
that
back
is-
to go back to the original point, don't you think it's more likely? Like, I think this is infinitely more likely, even though it's very difficult, especially now. But to remove all the settlements, just fuck all of them off, those scumbag freaks. Give it back to Palestinians, and you can do the security assurances and the negotiations and all of that, while Palestine has its own sovereign country. And like, I think in the original
I think
idea,
that's
there was
more
even going to be
violent.
there was
I
going to
think
be
that's more violent than a one state. Like, you think Israel would be able to successfully take out 471,000 settlers living in the West Bank, and
You think
also
that
another
Israel could- you think-
300,000, almost 300,000 more plus living in East Jerusalem as well, which is occupied but now also permanently under Israeli rule.
Do you think that fully integrating the populations would be less violent.
Yes,
I don't.
I do.
Dude, there's no way. Like, all it takes is one thing. We've seen this time and time again in the history of this region. Like, it just takes one thing of, like, a bunch of psychotic Jewish fundamentalists going and doing horrible fucking acts. And then the Palestinians respond by doing horrific acts. And then you got to all out. It takes so little to create all out war.
I agree.
So little, dude. So
I
little.
agree, which is why there needs to be an international presence and a steady steady pressure to ensure that that there is political pressure applied on specifically the Israeli side to ensure that there's a lasting peace process. This has happened time and time again. It happened in the dissolution of the apartheid state. It happened with the Good Friday Agreement that ended the Troubles, and it always will happen, because I believe that no matter how much we fight, I think peaceful solutions are our natural state. We want to fucking coexist with one another. And the example I always use is when you look at Europe, right, which is a borderless utopia now, like the EU, the European Union, there's freedom of movement. Those guys have fought one another since the cousin fucker days for far longer than they've actually peacefully coexisted with one another. And now it seems impossible to think of a time when these guys would kill one another for 100 years, right? I mean, World War II happened not that long ago. The Holocaust happened not that long ago. And now when you think about it, Germany can peacefully coexist with all of the other surrounding countries. So
is that the timeline we're on, like 100 years or something?
it would take multiple decades, but it's not like, I mean, it happened almost instantaneously after World War II. I mean, when you look at like civil governance in Germany, it was almost instant.
You mean after a horrific world war where like tens of millions of people died and countries were forever changed and traumatized, and they were able to create a lasting peace?
Yes. And that does
so-
not
and
have
so
that
what's
does
the
not need to
parallel?
happen.
Okay.
No, I'm saying
so
even
what-
in a situation like that,
What's
you can
the
find
parallel
peace.
to the Middle East?
Even in a situation like that where millions died, right? Millions, tens of millions died. You can
I
still
mean, this
find
is
lasting
like
peace
the
almost
greatest point
overnight.
I've heard. Like, imagine Nazi Germany happened. It happened. 6 million Jews fucking died. It was, what, 1945? When Nazi Germany fell? Like, that is recent history. Like, no one goes to Germany and is like, oh, these Germans, those Nazis. Like, I mean, some people do. Like, the integration after the war, like, happened surprisingly fast. Like, I can imagine, like, being a fucking Jew in Germany in 1945. I'd be like, there's no fucking way I'm gonna live with these people. Ever. I mean, look at it now. Like, there's so many Jews in Germany living completely in peace. So, like, clearly it is possible, no matter how fucking racist you are. It doesn't matter. It's clearly fucking possible.
At peace in Europe. I think this was possible from rising from the ashes of a ruined continent where unspeakable horrors that people didn't even think were possible occurred, capped off with a nuclear bomb. And by the way, Europe, the characterization of Europe as a utopia is interesting. But I want to say this. You saying sanctions against America or sanctions against Israel, you think would influence Israel to drop their borders. How have sanctions against Russia been going?
Thank you for saying that. Russia is a foreign adversary that has always positioned itself with the full knowledge that support from America, or support or
There is
trade
a.
relationship with America.
I'll make it
is
short.
always
I'll answer
on.
for Hassan, and he'll get to it eventually. Like, sanctioning your allies is very different from sanctioning your enemies. Because if you sanction your allies are dependent on you. Meaning, if you sanction them, you actively hurt them. Your enemies' economies are built to exist without you. Meaning, if you sanction them, your power is very fucking limited, isn't it? It's like it's actually
No,
very
yeah.
easy
China
answer.
and Russia and North Korea and whoever the fuck else gives a fuck. You know what I mean?
No, it can't. I don't.
They
I
To
don't
je,
think so.
jako
can.
představ si ty vole, Tobiáši, jaký by byl asi rozdíl, kdybychom dali sankce vole Slovensku a kdybychom dali vole sankce, nevím, Vietnam. Jako Vietnam by si z toho asi hlavu nedělal, že jo. A na Slovensko bychom pravděpodobně mohli donutit k hodně zajímavým kouskům. To ty vole by se ani nepoznal, chudák.
Such close association to the Western world would ever be on board with.
Dude, Israel is extremely resourceful. They've proven that from their inception. There's no way they will ever drop the border of their sovereignty. It will never ever happen. I understand everything you're saying, and I think what you're saying is interesting about, like, you know, potentially over a long span of time strengthening diplomatic ties with the neighboring countries and stuff. I guess it's possible, you know, in like 50 or 60 years that the landscape could be so vastly different than it is now that maybe if I were to be there and see it then, I could be like, okay, maybe this can work. But as of right now, looking at the situation, I can tell you, as someone who's lived in Israel, as someone who knows tons of Israelis, it will never happen. The Jews, they said, they came out of Europe and they said never again. I know a lot of people find it ironic because of what they're doing to Palestinians. I'm not defending them, but they believe that. They went to Israel and they said never again. And they fucking made nuclear bombs and they made a big ass army and they fucking believe that shit. Trust me on that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do trust you. I hear it. I see it. I know. You cannot maintain a apartheid regime without like a steady flow of constantly reinforcing that through propaganda. A steady flow of propaganda is a necessity. That's precisely the reason why a lot of these positions are learned and reaffirmed time and time again. And I completely understand. I'm just simply stating that like that perspective can be dealt with through the things that I just mentioned: the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, an honest effort in international pressure and international support, where it's an absolute necessity, because the other side of this process will be assuming that the Palestinians will be quietly ethnically cleansed without like the international community refusing to see that. In the same way that like Western leadership thinks that they can just suppress it as best as they can. This spells a lot of trouble and destabilization for Israel more than anything else. Like every single time Israel increases the pressure, every single time Israel has increased the pressure, it has led to more commotion, more chaos, and more devastation for Israel. October 7th is a direct consequence of that. You can never maintain an apartheid state forever. It just doesn't happen.
I want to emphasize I'm not moralizing anything I'm talking about. I'm just from pragmatics. Because, like, I don't know, if you in 1981, America was giving Israel almost 10% of its economy. Mm-hmm. Okay, in 2020, the current aid they're getting is about $4 billion. Is that right?
It's more than that, but I mean, just the the military aid alone is $4 billion. Yes.
Okay, that's 1% of their economy.
Yeah, that's 1% of the economy is massive, especially when you're thinking
Not
about
enough for them to fucking remove their borders. Not even close.
No, 1% of the economy is huge, Ethan.
So 1%
Think about it this way.
enough.
Think about it this way. Okay. The UAW strike was supposed to. The UAW strike on the big three was slated to eat away at I think like what 5% of all of the states. Like that would have been devastating. It would cause economic collapse. And sanctions don't mean just like the direct aid. Sanctions don't mean like direct. Sanctions don't necessarily just mean like all the weapons that we're giving to Israel. It also means like stopping companies from working with Israel as well. Like this is how
So
sanctions
I
operate.
feel like, in a sense, Israel's become, they really, with the amount of tech and like inventions and
Like
high
he
speed
is
shit they have, I
like it's clear that like Ethan, the Israeli guy who's speaking, like he's like so much in the propaganda. Like he believes like that Israel really is like one of its kind. Like it's not like economic rules apply to Israel. You're not like he thinks that they're like self-sustaining. Like fuck no, you're not. No country in the world is fucking self-sustaining these days. Every country will crumble if they lose it. Their fucking allies. Like he's so delusional. It's in like some of his like stuff he says are like so delusional, but it speaks to like how the propaganda in fucking Israel works. Like that is how it works. Like they convince their people there's something more. That they're not just like regular humans. Like he believes fucking Israel can just live by itself. He thinks sanctions can't hurt Israel. It's just delusional. It's just a country like any other. Plus, it's a country in a very hostile environment. I mean, definitely not as hostile in the past, but like, if you're gonna lose those fucking weapons from NA, like, you're gonna get eaten fast. Like, there's no way Israel could ever defend by itself if US cut the fucking funding. There's no fucking way. Like, the reason why the Arab nations don't attack is because Israel is USA. If Israel is no longer USA, they will attack. Kiwi Anglicky. I mean, they're talking. I'm listening to a conversation between Hassan and an Israeli Jew who lives in America. It's actually really interesting to listen to because Ethan, the Israeli Jew living in America, he's like clearly like very propagandized by Israel. Like a lot of his thoughts don't really like make any sense, but like he's completely believing in it.
And
you
especially
been to
because,
Israel?
like I mentioned,
Have you been to Israel?
no, I have not, Ethan. But I'm not talking
Do you
about.
know what the do you know what the Israeli perspective is?
I do talk to my
Yeah.
Israeli
And
counterparts. I've talked to Ofer Kasif. I talked
yeah,
to.
have you lived through daily suicide bombs in cafes and bus stops
As
or
a matter of fact, I have. I
rocket?
grew up in Turkey, but that's a different point.
Okay.
Yes, I have experienced that 100%.
Okay, in Israel. So
No,
like
not in Israel, but in Turkey, I have.
I know. I'm talking about Israel. So okay, fair enough. You've experienced that in Turkey. Do you think that you can understand without being there and without living there, like that you can convince them otherwise? I don't understand the I don't understand where that confidence comes from. How that you can make
The
that
confidence
statement.
comes from my belief that the morally just thing, like I will always unflinchingly support the morally just cause, right? No matter what happens.
Even
If we
if
talk
it's
about the practical application, yes, there is going to be people that are resistant to that. Maybe even people who want to engage in acts of terror against that on the Israeli side, especially. But ultimately, these are solvable problems because I look at the material realities on the ground. Without American support, Israel, without Western support, unconditional support, and trade, Israel would not be able to maintain an apartheid regime, just like South Africa was not able to maintain its apartheid regime. And as long as there is more pressure from the West, this will most likely change if America finally does the righteous thing for once in its fucking life. Now,
if
having
you
said that,
yeah.
having said that, okay.
By the
Um,
way, and I just need to make this clear because you keep saying that you support the moralistic thing. I support the moralistic thing too. I'm talking pragmatics here. I'm telling you that
Yes.
the one state is a non-starter. That's my point.
The
I need to keep
pragmatism
emphasizing that.
pragmatism
I
does
don't
not
have
rely.
chat open. I don't know what people are saying, but I can only imagine the fucking psychotic
Yeah.
take.
Well,
That
don't
people are
don't pay
having.
attention to what
And
people
by
are
the way,
saying.
all
Don't
on
pay attention to what people are saying.
if there's people watching this who are just seething, I'm I'm just telling you the this is just what it is. What I'm explaining to you is what it is. And and I believe that people need to reckon with the reality of the situation to actually approach this from into a meaningful conversation because again I can't emphasize how much the one state thing is impossible from the Israeli perspective.
Yeah.
But you talk about sanctions. I mean, if you look at Russia, Western all
Russia and Israel are
hold
not.
on, hold on,
Russia
hold
and
on.
Israel are not the same.
Of course, they're different countries. Western leaders, they all predicted there would be a total collapse of Russia's economy, but all that happened was it made them more nationalistic, made them more resolved. It made them basically search out new partnerships. And I don't think that there's any evidence that Israel would be unable to do the same things. It
Because
would. It
because
would.
the only
It would.
times where a sanctions
It doesn't need
regime
America
the
at
only
the end of
times
the
a
day.
sanctions
Yeah,
regime
because
regime
Russia
would
gets
ever
$3
work
billion
is if it's
a year for
threatening our
fucking
allies.
weapons.
That's
That does it.
We can work. We can actually sanction our allies. We cannot sanction our enemies in a way that
That,
like
there
stops
he
them
says it
from
exactly
finding
what
a
I
way to
said. It's
continue
not
to
like
survive
he
and
should have just
enjoy
started with
quality of
that.
life.
It's really simple.
Israel, Israel is a democracy for Israeli Jews, right? It's not a democracy for the Israeli.
You
American
can't
Palestinians
sanction
or
your
Israel.
enemies, but you can
I-
sanction your allies.
What's up?
It's very simple.
I think this idea that sanctions would change anything is
Because it would dramatically change
It's
the
because like
quality of
we
life.
imagine just the
How
fucking
does
Russia
that work?
example.
I
Like
gave you
it's
the
so
evidence. It
different
worked in South
to
Africa.
sanction your
With
ally
sanctions
and
alone,
sanction your enemy.
businesses pulling out of
Like
South
Jesus
Africa.
fucking Christ, just Ethan, just use your brain. America gives Israel $3 billion in weapons every fucking year. What does America give to Russia every year? Nothing. So if America sanctions Russia, not much happens. If it fucking sanctions Israel, you're gonna lose weapons in $3 billion. Your Iron Dome is gonna run out of juice in 1 week. Like it's so fucking simple. Like you just won't have a choice. Like what do you imagine that fucking Israel will take fucking sticks and try to fucking defend their nation? Like fuck no. They're not that psychotic, are they? It's not that complicated.
Everyone who has historically been the oppressor has always believed that once that oppression is not maintained, that the retribution will be just as violent, if not worse. And history has never shown an example of that in the way that it actually has like been an incredibly violent retribution. Like,
so you're saying, are
I guess,
you
like,
saying that
Haiti-
are you saying sanctions was singularly responsible for ending apartheid?
No, of course not. Of
And
course
so
not.
what percentage of it would you say?
I don't know
Yeah.
what the exact percentage with the sanctions.
I'd
would
say
be,
a
but
big.
all matter.
Like I wouldn't even. I would almost go up to the half. Like I think sanctions would be an insane accelerator of ending this fucking apartheid. Because like the main reason why this apartheid fucking works is because Israel is okay with it. Like actually forcing Israel to think about ending it is like a massive fucking part.
But yes, international support being pulled out of South Africa was a gigantic burden for the South African economy, which forced the hands of South African politicians that wanted to maintain the apartheid into, making a new arrangement finally.
Do you think the global politics, geopolitics is that we see in the world today is comparable to what we saw then?
No, because I think the collapse of the USSR
Máš proti
also
Turkům,
was
Felixi?
playing a role in that process.
Nebo je to
Don't
protože je
you think
hnědý.
that like the different
Aha.
there's different allegiances and groups of nations forming, and one of them will take in Israel. There's just no shot.
The
China,
idea,
Russia,
the
North
idea that
Korea,
the
they'll
idea that
fucking-
someone
they'll
might take in
fuck out.
Israel is insignificant in this circumstance. You know why? Because the quality of life that Israel has afforded to at least Jews inside of Israel proper is one that people do not want to take away. This is the major difference. If you live in a country like Russia, your government is already positioned against America sanctioning you before America even sanctions you. So you can withstand sanctions. Israel, on the other hand, has never considered the quality of life shift that would be seismic if there was Western sanctions upon Israel. It's just like, it's untenable. There's no way out of it. There's no like, oh, we'll just like deal with China and then China will defend us while we still maintain the same quality
they'll
of
sell
life.
them arms. They'll, you know what I mean?
I'm not saying that there aren't.
There'll be a valuable exchange of goods, ideas, IP, weapons. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
certainly.
and by the way, Israel, I say this because people really need to understand how much they think that if they dissolve the borders, they will all be killed. They will use a nuclear bomb if they have to.
Yeah.
That's just retarded. Plus, like, in South Africa, did the white people not feel the same? In fucking America, when black slavery ended, didn't white Americans feel the fucking same? Of course they did.
Happening is a all-out war. That's the only way. And Israel, in that case, if they were on the back end of losing an all-out war, they would use a nuclear bomb.
By the way, as far as the apartheid regime goes, I believe Israel was one of the countries that actually continued to support South Africa through the embargo.
I know that. They had a
but it
joint...
didn't work. It didn't work, right? Like,
No,
at the end
I'm
of the
not
day...
defending Israel. I
No,
know
no,
Israel...
I'm not saying this to defend Israel. I'm saying it didn't work.
They had a joint operation with the South Americans to build nuclear bombs. I know. They love them. Thank you. So I'm not...
No, that's not what I meant. The reason why I mentioned that is because South Africa had allies as well, but they lost Western support. And when you lose Western support, you cannot...
Israel's not gonna give them...
Without
alone.
Western support...
It's not enough support for nations.
Jako zní hrozně dezulio, já nevím, jak to říct. Delusional. Strašně, ale jako fakt strašně. Ten Izrael, s kterým mluví, mimochodem, má jeden z největší podcast světa. Mimochodem. To je H3 Productions, se to se jmenuje. Tohle je jeho channel.
Hey man, I have no idea what you set up.
Kolik to má subscriberů, kde to můžu vidět? 3 miliony subscriberů. To je gigantický člověk. Tak tenhle milionář. Takže jako o to víc je šokující, jaký šíleným věcem věří. Tak silná je izraelská propaganda.
A massive seismic shift in their quality of life. A lot of people would fucking probably straight up leave.
They would.
That's
You
what I
don't
mean.
understand. No. They would. They would take the seismic shift. They would. That's the thing that you don't understand. They would. And they, you know what I mean? They would. I know. People underestimate what the fuck Israel means to the people that live there.
My point is always this: if BDS wasn't a genuine threat that Israel noticed and thought was like a legitimate threat, they would have not.
What does
BDS.
South Korea have to do with the conflict?
No, boycott, divestments, and sanctions on the state of Israel.
Oh, okay. 'Cause
Just like
BTS is, I do stand them.
yes, we stand BTS. Don't get mad at us, please. But
you see
BDS in
me?
and of itself was
you see me, son?
originally I've been throwing them up too.
Okay,
BDS,
good.
boycott, divestments, and sanctions, which is controversial because like sometimes there are sometimes it does overextend itself for sure, and like goes after like random fucking groups and whatnot. But like as long as it's like steadily maintained, boycott, divestments, and sanctions is a successful way to apply pressure to Western governments to apply pressure to the state of Israel, just like it worked against apartheid South Africa. And that is precisely the reason why because it worked against South Africa.
Wasn't the sole reason, first of all.
It wasn't.
One
Of
of
course
many.
it wasn't.
One of
I
many.
never said it was, but it
But
was a
again,
major
you're
reason.
using it as an example, like the silver bullet, like that. Yeah, they did sanctions, so apartheid ended. It's just not the same thing.
Well, the
I mean,
reason why
Israel.
I'm using that
Anyway,
as an
I think we're
example.
going on and on about the sanctions too much because the thing is, I guess we're at a bit of an impasse in that. Like on one hand, looking at the two-state solution, I understand, there's so many fucking settlers now, and the government in charge of Israel has Netanyahu, basically, and his cabinet, have gone so fucking far, have done so much damage to the cause of peace by encouraging and arming these psychotic freaks that are out there, the settlers.
Yeah, that's the
Fucking-
other thing is that the Israelis like to blame everything on Netanyahu. But like Netanyahu had no influence until the peace talk began in like 1993, I think, as Czech Republic was founded. Until then, there was no Bibi Netanyahu and none of the people that are in his government right now. The settlements were already a massive issue from 1967 to 1993, for 30 years before these people were even in power. So like trying to be like, I mean, we just take Bibi out and settlements are fixed, right? Like fuck no, like this shit goes on for very very long time. It wasn't their idea. Just because they fucking enforced it doesn't mean they fucking created the problem, and by taking them out will fix the problem. Fuck no.
Just like I'm talking about integrating
why I'm
Jewish.
telling- and
That's
again-
why That's why I'm talking about integrating the Jewish Power Party and many of the other far-right Israeli components in Israeli society that actually enjoy great civil liberties currently, integrating them into society as well. In the United States of America, we have a lot of problems, right? We have a lot of issues. We have a lot of racism, for example. We live in a white supremacist nation, and yet, if the conditions for the Palestinians reflected the conditions of black people right now in the United States of America, this would be an unimaginable improvement than living under an apartheid regime. If the conditions, I used Turkey as an example before. I have long been a supporter of Kurdish people in developing a nation state for themselves. 35 million Kurdish people live in diaspora. I believe that they have a right to have a nation state for themselves in this region. And I think that there's a tremendous number of Kurdish people that are oppressed in the country of Turkey, okay, inside of Turkish borders. If the treatment of Kurdish people in Turkey resembled the treatment of Palestinians in Israel in a singular secular nation state, this would be a dramatic improvement on their quality of life. It would be celebrated by the Western world as a tremendous accomplishment. People would literally be celebrating it in the fucking streets. They'd be like, this is it, we did it. So this does not mean that like Kurdish people are not mistreated in Turkey. They certainly are. But that's how poor the structure is currently in the singular apartheid regime in Israel.
Listen, I think you've definitely said stuff that I hadn't thought about in terms of like how a one state would be possible, and certainly thinking about it on like a long term, over like maybe a 50-year span, then it really seems more likely that something like that could happen. But I don't think that people who discuss this, I don't know what's the right word because I know it's so sensitive with like leftists and liberal and all this shit. Like, so I don't like fucking saying all that shit. But people who are, and I don't even want to say pro-Palestinian activists either, because I mean,
But in
yeah, I can say that maybe. Can I say pro-Palestinian? Because I feel that I advocate for the Palestinian people too, but my perspective is just that I don't think the people who talk about this understand how far Israel will go to make sure that that never happens.
I do. I oftentimes don't want to showcase like the full-blown Israeli perspective on this matter in an
Yeah.
effort to
because of anti-Semitism, because Israelis are fucking psychos. Not because they're Jews, but because they're led by Zionists. Like, the thing is, no one questions, like, it feels like he's trying to tell us, like, You don't understand how angry the Israelis will be when you end their fucking apartheid regime. I get it. Like, of course they'll be angry, but there's nothing they can do to fucking stop it if we start it. Like, it doesn't fucking matter that you're gonna be fucking angry, man. Like, that's not our fucking problem. Like, deal with your anger. Go to a fucking psychiatrist and tell him, I really enjoyed that Arabs had no fucking rights. Go handle it that way. Like, no one fucking gives a shit. The point is, you can't stop it. It doesn't matter that you not like it. It doesn't matter that if Israelis will agree with it or not. Doesn't fucking matter.
Getting there is the fucking problem, you know.
But yeah, I agree. Like, the main problem is how do we get to these talks? And I agree with Hassan that the Western fucking sanctions are the best fucking... are the best number one beginning of how to fucking start this.
It's not the hard part about this conflict. Everybody can easily tell you apartheid is bad. The hard part of this conflict is deciding what the fuck to do about it. And in that regard, it is extremely complicated.
Yes. Here's the thing, though. I think that you are surrounded by people who are very like-minded in many respects. So you don't see the other side of the conversation, because a lot of people do say that Israel's not an apartheid, and it is actually very complicated. That they're not talking about the solution.
Hold on. What side is it you're saying I'm not exposed to? Or which side am I overly
I think
exposed
you're talking to like-minded people like myself, more so than I guess like people who you know, you're talking to people who already have like established that Israel's an apartheid state, because the overwhelming majority do not consider it that.
I agree, and that's why it's important to frame these kinds of conversations, because I understand that the rhetoric, mainstream rhetoric in Israel and in America, is way, way, way to the right of where we're talking now. So I understand that. Some people might look at this conversation and say that, like, you're missing the point. I know that. I'm trying to engage in a good faith discussion. I don't need to acknowledge people that are like, oh, we need to kill all the fucking Gazans. Like, obviously, that's insane. You know what I mean?
But that's not even what we're saying. Like,
damnable.
there are plenty of people who are like, oh man, I really sure feel bad about the Gazans, but also like, Israel has security concerns, so they have to eradicate Hamas. Like, I hear varying degrees of this kind of sentiment expressed from, you know, a diverse group of people. And ultimately, a lot of this still revolves around, like, I hate Netanyahu, but we have to keep letting him do what he's doing, even though Netanyahu and what he has done so far in Gaza is simply a continuation of the multiple decades of arrogance on behalf of Israeli politics, assuming that, like, this apartheid regime can be maintained without any severe violent repercussions, not even listening to its own internal security forces like Shin Bet. These guys are not fucking woke, obviously. They're, you know, their job is, you know Shin Bet. Their job is to literally defend Israel's internal security. Like, when you have former leaders and also current existing Shin Bet members tell the Netanyahu government, hey, stop fucking over people in the West Bank, because this is going to cause a major collapse. This is becoming a security issue, to which the Netanyahu government responds with, you're fucking woke, shut the fuck up. The deep state has infiltrated Shin Bet. We're not going to listen to you. When you have, you know, former Israeli leaders saying that, like, this regime is far too brutal at this point to continue without any severe repercussions, and you have 76% of the population saying, we want to fucking fire Netanyahu, we want Netanyahu to leave, while simultaneously supporting his actions in Gaza, there's this mismatch here. There's this disconnect. People want some kind of retribution, and that's understandable, a violent retribution, and yet they don't recognize that violent retribution is what causes more violence down the line. This is how Hamas came to power, and it will never, you can never, unless you do full-blown ethnic cleansing, you are never going to be able to take care of this problem through violent means. It doesn't work that way. History has only been solved in the exact opposite direction. But I do want to hear what your perspective is. Like, what do you think is the solution? Because I think you believe in a two-state solution, right?
I just, in terms of what's pragmatic, yeah.
So
And
why
again,
do
I don't know how pragmatic it is because even saying it seems so fucking crazy because, like you said, but I think it is. I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. But just from my perspective, which is that the dissolution of the borders will never ever happen, is that I think that obviously lifting, I think removing the settlers from the West Bank, that's obviously the biggest problem. Like, I don't know how you're going to do that.
So how do you think you can remove 750,000 people living in occupied territory right now, whether it be both East Jerusalem, which is very densely populated, but also within the West Bank, where there is 451,000 people living there?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, you could do it by force, or you could just say you guys are on your own now. Like, this isn't our territory.
Yeah, but don't you think that that would be incredibly violent? Like
It
to
would
the
be, yeah, it
people
would be
that live
horrible.
there? And there's also no reason for them to do that because I don't think that that's what Israel wants. I think what Israel wants historically, or at least what it's shown me and others, Israeli scholars themselves who have changed their perspective from a two-state solution to a single-state solution as well, is that we're just going to keep dangling the peace negotiations in an effort to slowly but surely push out Palestinians from their own ancestral homes as we did
You want me
in
to
the
answer the
Nakba.
question?
And what's up?
You want me to answer the question you asked?
Yeah.
So, I believe that that's the biggest problem. But removing them and lifting the barriers of the lifting the walls, creating a Palestinian state. There'd probably need to be. I know in 1948 there was talks about a train that connected Gaza and the West Bank, or something like that. Or, but I don't know. Maybe there'd be some concessions of land there to make it continuous.
That's
And
insane. Like make a
and
train that
also, I would be in
connects the
favor of some kind of
country.
reparations.
Bro,
Too.
what the
Now,
fuck?
again, that seems far fetched. It does seem
It
far-fetched.
does.
I give it. It's granted, but like, it's so hard. It's equally hard for me to. It's harder for me actually to imagine Israel ever conceding.
Do you think
So,
Israel would
it sounded-
concede to a two-state solution then?
I mean, I think there would be an appetite for it if the situation was, if like the vibes were right, to put it in a silly way. Like, if there was a fair duration of peace and goodwill talks. If you go back again to Arafat and Rabin, even though a lot of Palestinians, I'm trying not to chew gum. A lot of Palestinians were not happy with it. But if you can go back to 1948, make more concessions. I don't know, man. I don't fucking know. I don't know. They both seem so far-fetched and difficult, if I'm being honest.
Yes.
Because the settler situation just ruins the whole fucking thing. There's just too many settlers.
Yeah,
I don't
there
know.
are 750,000 total, but 450,000 just in West Bank alone. You want to know the number of settlers that existed in the West Bank in 1977?
What was it?
7,000. So, and in the
Yeah, that-
90s, that only increased to like what? I don't know what the exact number was. Hold on, I'm gonna look this up really quickly. So,
Man, I had no idea the
see,
increase was that
1990,
massive. Holy shit.
number of settlers in the West Bank. In the West Bank in 1988, by 1988, what is it? Number of settlers in the settlements in the West Bank, according to the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics. Wait, what is this? Number of settlers in Israeli settlements in the West Bank region by 1986. By 1986, the West Bank area, excluding Jerusalem, was 60,000. By 1990, it was 88,000. And then if you included Jerusalem, it reached up to 132,000. So in the 1990s, this number continuously grew to
Holy
100,000.
shit. Since Gaza blockade, it fucking grew like by all like it's so fucking much. But yeah, like that is what I'm saying. Like, this is not Netanyahu. It's like the first half of fucking settlers were way before Netanyahu even exists. Like the increase is insane though. But this is not Netanyahu. The Israeli question, let's just take down Netanyahu and everything will be nice and dandy.
So
And in this
I don't know.
process, this was, of course, this process was also done deliberately to destroy contiguity in the West Bank. That's why West Bank was partitioned off into 3 separate areas, A, B, and C, and of course, control over the areas that even Palestinians live in is also disputed. Israel took over more than 80% of the West Bank in this time frame. 80%. By saying these are this is a matter of military necessity. B'Tselem has a really helpful guide on this if you want to look at it as well. They have like an interactive map that you can scroll throughout time to see it. And in that process, they set up checkpoints. In that process, they set up 2 specific highway systems where Palestinians could only go on certain roads with a tremendous number of checkpoints versus Israelis could go on all the other roads. And
right, I know, it's horrible. It's
Yeah,
apartheid.
so-
and it's
so-
crazy.
so
But you
to
know,
me,
maybe
this was
you're
the
right.
opportunity.
I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe one state is more likely. Maybe
'Cause-
I can see it, but like, I just have a hard time reconciling that. But the way that you explained it definitely does make me think that it could be possible over a long period of time. So it would have to be it'd have to be 50 years from now, and we didn't nuke the whole planet, and somehow there's been a period of relative peace and calming of tensions and stuff. I
Yeah.
can see it. I can see that being a more.
that starts with in good faith, and there's always going to be people who want to fuck that up.
But
There's gonna
even
be people.
Hassan, even if the one state, there's still going to be these radical, fundamental settlers there that the Palestinians are going to want to fucking kill, rightfully, right? Or I mean,
Yes.
I don't killing people isn't right, but there's going to be fundamental Islamists.
No,
that
there's
want to
yeah,
fucking kill
exactly,
them.
absolutely. You're right about that. Except there are. This is something that I talked to Jake about because I think Jake's understanding is like kind of childish of the matter. He always says like, "Oh, it's
Jake,
religion." It's
Hold
Jake,
on.
Uncle
Cenk for
Jake.
president, bro.
Yeah, Jake for president. He's gonna do it. He's gonna do the damn thing.
You're gonna be VP?
But no. But well, I do have a. I could actually technically run for president. He can't because I'm an American citizen. He's not.
yet.
Or
Not
I mean,
yet.
he's not a. He's
Yes.
a naturalized American citizen.
Not
I
yet.
am a natural born U.S. citizen. So one thing I want to say is this: he always says like, "Oh, well, it's a religious war." I'm like, no, it's not. Here's obviously it's not. But think about it this way: we have our own versions of psychopathic fundamentalist terrorists, right? We do. And every now and then there's an act of stochastic terror, and that's devastating, and we deal with it through the normal criminal court system, right? That's what will happen. I'm not saying that like it's going to be perfect and everyone's going to get together, hold hands and say kumbaya, okay? That like everyone's going to hug and kiss one another. But what we do have a tendency to collaborate with one another, okay? We do have a tendency to live in peace. That's what we want to do. So ultimately, if there is a structure, if there's a one-state structure, of course there's going to be fucking psychotic like Jewish power people and also Islamist fundamentalists or even people who are like, nah, fuck that, I want to kill settlers regardless. Those guys are going to go to jail. Just like the kickstarting of that process also revolves around making sure that there is a tribunal for war criminals on both sides. Like being able to capture and also bring to justice war
what do you
criminals
do
on
about the
both sides of the
settlement?
equation.
What do you
What's
do
up?
about the settlements that are there now? I guess you're saying it doesn't matter because everybody can live wherever they
That's the settlements are precisely the reason why I don't believe in a two-state solution, because I don't believe that there is any reasonable way to eradicate 400,000 people and then 230,000 from Jerusalem like that. You cannot do that in a peaceful way.
So
You
the
cannot
idea
take
is
these people
that-
out of there. By the way,
Right.
you were
The
talking about
idea
the
is that
Holocaust
people-
survivors. The Holocaust survivors is actually a really interesting thing. I didn't even know about this, but you know about this because you lived in Israel. They're some of the poorest people in Israel. Some of them that were moved into settlements in the West Bank as well. But like, I think what is it like 1/3 of every Holocaust survivor that's remaining lives in like abject poverty. So
I don't know that. I mean, there's not a lot of them left.
Yeah.
I don't know about their economic.
No, it's really fucked up. So like it's, you know, I know that the thing is like, oh, it'll be another Holocaust or whatever, but like, you know, Israel should probably look into helping its Holocaust survivors that are still alive at this point, rather than so hornily try to fucking take as much land as possible. This is
Sure.
the whole
Listen,
point.
I agree. Yeah, take care of them. Take care of everybody. But you know, it's like I think it's so fucked up. So fucked up it is. Both options seem like pipe dreams right now in this point in time.
Like, I'll tell you this much. What changed for me, what I realized was like, especially in this last iteration, this last like counter to the October 7 tragedy. What I realized was, or I guess it made it permanent in my mind, is that the Israeli government, completely removed from the interests of the Israeli citizenship, Israeli citizenry, operates with a one-track mind. They care more about like expelling Palestinians, not always like ethnically cleansing, but ethnically displacing Palestinians from this territory, from the territories they occupy, than they do about the safety and security of the Israeli citizens. I saw this being reflected by those who had been victim to the attacks on Kibbutz Be'eri and other kibbutzim as well. Some of the victims immediately after, while they like were still trying to figure out where their family members were in that hotel in the Dead Sea, and they basically were reflecting on the things that had happened, and they were saying a similar thing, that it's like if you care more about like killing Palestinians or pushing Palestinians into the sea than you do about like the safety and security of the Israeli citizens, like of course this is going to happen. This is going to continue happening over and over again. And why am I saying this? Because on October 7th and October 8th and October 9th, there were still Palestinian militants inside of Israeli boundaries, right? But what was the first action that Israel engaged in?
They bombed
the first
Gaza.
action that Israel engaged in for the first 2 days was immediately to start bombing Gaza. To me, it's
That
like...
actually, that is a
what the
fun
fuck?
fact. Israeli bombed Gaza before they deployed troops to the kibbutzes to free the people. They actually threw the bombs before calling the army to stop the attack. That's how insane that government is.
Like areas where there's rocket fire coming from, which they trade off time and time again. But instead of indiscriminately bombing Gaza, I think the first thing to do in that situation would be to dismantle the government in the way that it existed, like get Netanyahu out of power.
Okay. So you're
80
saying Israel in
85%.
response? Hold on, dude. You're saying in response to this terrorist attack, Israel should have dismantled their own government.
First set of actions would be to democratically take Netanyahu out of power, yes, and then engage in a hostage release scheme that would then also lead to a larger negotiations process. Absolutely.
You're
And if they didn't comply, and if Hamas didn't comply,
Yes, I
then
say
you fucking
should,
bomb.
but
Then
I
you
mean,
bomb. Like it's not my point is always this. Like I talk to my friends who are definitely a lot more conservative than you are, right? My friends who are Zionists.
Okay.
Who
Yeah.
are a lot more
I'm
conservative
not.
in their
I don't
opinion.
know in what way I'm conservative at all.
You're not. I'm saying that I have
And
friends who are a
so
lot
many
more
people
conservative than you.
mischaracterize me what I believe. It's really.
I am not
fucking
saying I'm not mischaracterizing you at all. If I
You're
first of
not.
all, if I thought you were a reactionary on this matter, I would not be having a normal conversation with you. I would be incredibly critical and would be more interested in like yelling and trying to nudge my position across instead of like walking through this step by step and get
Are
fake.
you wearing baby gloves for me?
No, I'm not wearing baby gloves for you. I think that you are a very kind-hearted person who literally lived in Israel, so you of course have like biases, just like I do, right? biases in the other direction, but you
Well, I
are
think it-
someone who is ultimately led by empathy. That's not.
I
I'm
don't-
not saying it's baby gloves at all. I think like if you
Well, I
are
think
faced
it
with some,
helps that I'm not saying that we should kill all Palestinians. Certainly, that would be a
Yeah.
different conversation.
yes, exactly. But I don't think like this is something that I've explained to my audience time and time again, which was like that you pick your battles. Like there's no reason to fucking people love yelling at whatever is in front of their faces. And I think that you are someone who does have a lot of empathy for Palestinian people. And it is, in my opinion, ridiculous and unproductive to just like fucking spend any time being like, oh, you're bad, you're wrong, like fuck you.
I
That's
have to
my
say,
perspective.
Since I'm on your stream, I'll just say this. I don't know the majority, but there was like a big portion of your fan base that was, I felt so unfairly and overly over the top, just so nasty that it made me want to disengage from the whole thing. And just like, I just don't understand, like,
I mean, it's like there's a genocide happening, and like your biggest problem with creating peace between Palestine and Israel is that Israel's feelings will be hurt. Like that's the biggest fucking problem. Like I don't fucking blame anyone who's nasty to this guy. I really don't
so
blame
I don't
anyone.
know what fucking allies people are looking for. If I'm not a good ally for you guys, then I don't know. Like I'm talking to them because how are we ever gonna actually have meaningful dialogues or meaningful peace about this when someone like me is too fucking Zionist or something for you to even talk to? Like,
I think
if
a
you
lot of people.
if you can't build a bridge with me, then I don't think you're gonna build a bridge with a single person in Israel ever.
I know. I agree with you. I think the reason, I guess, like this is not a defense because I've like criticized people yelling at you regularly, and have told people to you know, I have told people to just like think about this critically and understand that there's a broad coalition that is an absolute necessity if you want to make any changes in the political realm, and like that you are not anyone's enemy in this struggle. I've repeated it time and time again. I told like I don't spend a lot of time in Discord, but
I've
I have
seen
nuked my own.
you say that, and I
I've nuked
appreciate
my
it.
own Discord
Yeah,
before.
I appreciate what you've said.
And I
Certainly.
think that it's I think ultimately it's silly to yell at someone like yourself on this process, even if there are disagreements, that people might have with you. I mean, but the difference, of course, is it's the same cycle, right? It's the same cycle that you and I experience in other situations in our lives. Like we say something, tensions are high, and then people just like automatically take a black and white position on it,
Why the
and then
fuck are
they
we not in the
posture.
studio right now? This is
What?
so stupid. We've been talking for like 2 hours. We could have done the podcast.
I'm the one who told you we could do it. You're the one who said you're sick.
Well, I am sick, but I'm just sitting here talking
Yeah.
for 2 fucking hours.
Yeah, we could have done it. I didn't even like promote it because I always worry that people are just gonna fucking take advantage of like any kind of conversation we have to like move it in a direction that gives them clout for no fucking reason. I hate that shit. But
So I think maybe I would like to pivot maybe to talking about the from the land to the sea, and maybe
Yeah.
why from the perspective of Israelis and Jewish people at large that they see
Yeah.
this as a problematic thing to say. I mean, at worst, right?
we
It's
can do
used
that,
by-
but I have to pee first. Okay, let me pee real
ahead.
quick, and then you can explain your position if you want.
I'll wait.
While I pee.
I'll
It's
wait.
fine.
I'll take over. Guys, everybody watching, go to teddyfresh.com. Black Sale Friday. Black Friday sale is live now, you guys. Up to 60% off. Get over there.
Jak abychom se pochopili,
Now
já s
you're-
Hasánem nesouhlasím v hrozně moc věcech, jako fakt, že jo. My oba jsme hodně proti kapitalismu, to je pravda, nicméně oboje naše řešení je hodně odlišný toho, čeho bychom chtěli dosáhnout. Nicméně pokud jde o lidský práva, tak se vždycky shodneme. Protože no, ve skutečnosti mít správnou pozici na lidský práva není tak složitý. Prostě práva pro všechny, že jo. Já nevím, proč to dělá tolika lidem tolik problémů. No. Mně a Hasánovi ne. Normanu Finkelsteinovi taky ne. Asi protože když dáš práva všem, tak se na tom blbě vydělává. No. Takže asi proto má na to každý svůj názor. Asi jenom ty, co na tom nechtějí vydělávat, tak ty mají ten správný názor. Asi tak bych se na to podíval. Piče. A je to jako šílený, no. Protože jako tohle je opravdu jeden z takových těch víc progresivních Izraelců, který tady mluví. Tohle je taková tohle je ten, s kým budeš vyjednávat, no. Takže jako není to úplně zbytečný, ale jako, ano, tohle je ten typ Izraelců, který budou vyjednávat o míru. Jako prdel to nebude, no. Ano, z těch progresivnějších, no. Jako rozhodně nad polovinou, 100%. Jo. Neřekl bych, že je to takový ten top 10%, tam určitě je spousta, v Izraeli je spousta organizací, které bojují za práva Palestinců, když jsou kompletně ignorovaný. Takže tam je pravděpodobně to v těch top 10%, ale on je tak jakoby mezi no. Jakoby za nima, no. To je velice vtipné, tyjo.
That as a genocide. So that it's if it's viewed in that scope, there's another interesting thing that I've noticed about this. I mean, the thing is like that phrase does have a long history of being used by terrorists. And
Yeah.
so
You guys want to know what phrase was used by not terrorists but by Nazis? Slava Ukrajiny. That was a slogan adopted by the Azov Nazis. So why are we allowed to use it then? Because the meaning is not fucking Nazi. It's just such a stupid argument.
Jews make up 60% of all hate crimes in America right now.
Mm-hmm.
So when Jewish people look at that and they say, "Listen, it makes me uncomfortable the way that that's used." I find it interesting that people see that as an opportunity to argue instead of listen. Especially to me, it's like you can make the same argument about the Confederate flag, where Southerners will be like, "Listen, it's just about our heritage." You know what I mean? That has nothing to do with
I
racism.
don't think that's a
And
good
maybe-
comparison.
Some people do believe that, right? But at the end of the day, if a black person is like, that Confederate flag is offensive to me,
That's the
you're not
worst
going to argue.
fucking
with me and say, "No, it's
comparison
just
I ever
weird."
heard.
Like, not everybody
What
who uses
the
it is
fuck?
racist. So then, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't seem fair.
I know, but okay.
Oh my god, like this is like just hear him, right? Like that's a slogan to stop murdering children in Gaza. And his argument is it's not fair. Like it's just so insane. Like what do you mean? It's a slogan to stop murder. It's a slogan for ceasefire, for negotiations for peace. But it's just not fair. Like what the fuck?
60s, it has always been utilized as a slogan for emancipation and never for anti-Semitism. The reason why
It was
Hamas adopted
co-opted,
it,
though,
the
by a
reason why,
hateful
yeah, the
organization.
reason why Hamas co-opted it when they had 3% support, as opposed to the PLO, which had 83% support, right?
Hamas support now.
Alongside the PLO, was because it was the slogan that was the slogan for Palestinian emancipation. This does not mean that like that slogan changed at any given point to mean killing all the Jewish people just because it was co-opted by a marginal militant faction that in and of itself has never reached a similar level of popularity to even a two-state solution has historically amongst Palestinians. They've never polled anywhere near 52%
So where
support.
do you, in which
That's
part
true.
of this do you think it's fair to argue with a group that makes up 80% of all hate crimes that happen in America, or not 80,
because
60%?
because
That that you can argue with them and say no, it's fine.
I'm going to tell you. Because, well, two reasons. One, because Palestinians are the oppressed party in the structure against the state of Israel. Not Jews, the state of Israel, which does not, I think you and I both agree, does not represent the interests of Jews at all, and will falsely conflate the interests of Jews with the interests of the state of Israel, specifically so they can continue to engage in this argument, sometimes from a disingenuous framing, a disingenuous conflation. Jewish people themselves say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Jewish people are at the forefront of the anti-apartheid, anti-Zionist activism. Jewish voice for peace, Jews for economic and
The existence of Jewish people doesn't. I don't know. That point is not very persuasive. I mean, of course there is.
What do you? Of course, it's. I think it's very important
Because
if it
there's
was like,
Israelis that say it.
do you know?
Or a minority or Jewish people shouldn't be offended by it because some people say it. I mean.
No, I think because Jewish people, I'm not going to talk about this as like Jewish people in general. The reason why I brought up Jews for Jewish Voice for Peace and other groups using this as well, like Jews themselves in America using this anti-Zionist slogan, indicates that this slogan isn't one that is about the evisceration of Jews. If that was the case, then they wouldn't use it.
There was Jewish collaborators with fucking Nazis.
Ethan, don't do that, please. Don't say that the Jews' Voice for Peace are akin to capos. Like, that's...
I'm telling you that the mere existence of Jewish voices it's not a leg to stand on. I don't understand that.
But
Of course, there's going to be Israelis.
But the most important component here,
It's
the
like
most
you're
important component
tokenizing
here
a
is
few
that
Israelis. It seems silly.
what? Ethan,
You're like, here, check out my Israeli. He says it.
that's not.
Then I don't find it a good point.
Well, I will explain to you why it's not a comparison, because I think you agree with me on this as well, that it's Palestinian emancipation is just, right? It's just, whereas the Confederacy is not. The Confederacy was there to preserve, they said states' rights, but it was there to preserve the maintenance of slavery. Palestinian emancipation is not, or has not ever been broadly defined at any moment throughout its history, the evisceration of all Jews living in Israel, or the forcible expulsion of all Jews living in Israel. Other militant factors that were never, ever as popular as the broader Palestinian emancipatory movement have taken on this slogan alongside slogans like Free Palestine in general. The same exact argument to say from Free Palestine from the river to the sea can also be applied to Free Palestine as well. It's just a matter of where the motivations lie. You have to look at
how Israelis view it. Is that you're saying that Israel
I don't care
as a
about how
country,
Israelis view it. I will admit that I don't.
and Jews at large. I think
No,
I think most Jews.
I don't think Jews at large view it. I don't think that is the.
What in what position are you to even say that?
Well, I'm in the position of
I'm telling you that
almost
Jews at
almost
large-
entirely getting. I know. My perspective is
You
not
speak for my
motivated
entire
by
ethnic
myself.
group.
It's motivated
That's
by
crazy to me.
Jews against anti-Zionist
No,
Jews.
seriously, how can you speak for my entire ethnic group? I find that really interesting.
Well, I
my
speak for
God.
my ethnic group.
How many Jews have you polled about if they find that offensive or not?
It doesn't matter if people
You
find
said
it
you know a
offensive.
ton of Jews.
It doesn't matter if Jews find it offensive, Ethan.
Doesn't
That's
matter if a
ridiculous-
minority group finds something anti-Semitic.
Yes, of course, because we're not talking about Jews at all. We're talking about Israel.
Yes,
another
you're
reason
not a
that I'm-
fucking minority.
No,
my
in this
God.
case, the perception is because that phrase has been co-opted by terrorist groups and it's been used widely by terrorist groups, and the idea that's being communicated although we've talked about the one state idea today, and the way that we've discussed it definitely seems like more realistic. But people don't think about it that way. They think about basically the state of Israel disappearing. And when Jews around the world think about the state of Israel disappearing, and there's like a mass fucking genocide of all the Jews there, then yes, they're gonna look at that and they're not gonna be happy about it.
Ethan, Israel is the party with all of the power in the structure. Palestinians have
telling
no
you.
power
I'm
in the
just telling you
structure.
why
I'm
people are
going to
offended by
listen
it.
to the Palestinian voices and tell you the historical reference points as to what from the river to the sea Palestine will be free when talking about it.
So at what
Just like
point at what point can a phrase be co-opted by a terrorist, and then you'd be like, maybe we'll back off that one.
The swastika and the Nazi comparison is actually a wonderful one, and I do not think that the Hamas or any Palestinian group has ever actually reached the machine of ethnic cleansing that
But
the
it's the
Nazis have.
intention,
Making
dude.
that
It's not what
comparison,
they
in my
can
opinion, is
do.
like
It's not
diminishing
about-
the impact of the Holocaust.
It's not what they've done or can do. It's about the meaning of it. You know.
Yeah, Hamas also says free Palestine. That doesn't change the meaning behind free Palestine. It doesn't mean anything. What you have to look at is what the broader Palestinians, what the Palestinian movement believes, what the Palestinian movement implies when they're saying this, and it's important. It's important
Exactly.
because, like, what are people to do, Ethan? What is the solution here? We say Palestinians can't say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. There's people claiming that even saying a ceasefire is actually against Israel's best interests, or even anti-Semitic, as a matter of fact. At a certain point, you have to realize that like maybe it's a little disingenuous, and that it's more so to just like squash any amount of any amount of sentiment expressed towards Israel.
At any point, should you think about maybe I should ease off this because it is offensive to the vast majority of Jews. Interpret it in a not nice way, despite what people's intentions are, and that maybe it's counterproductive to double, triple, quadruple down on it.
No, because I'm not going to.
How does that help the cause of Palestinian freedom? When people go,
because I'm not going
listen,
to because I'm not going to make
they say-
concessions that I don't that hold no historic weight, that I'm actually listening to the Palestinians when they say what they mean, because I don't have this like secret because I don't have this like secondary assumption that Palestinians actually are sneakily meaning something else, like they're like actually
that's
talking
not
about the
what I
destruction of
said.
Jews.
Don't fucking
I know that's not what
don't put
you
that in
said.
my- don't put
I
those
know
words in
that's
my
not
mouth.
what you said. You're not saying that. You're not saying that at all. But there are plenty of people who are implying that. And even then, I'm simply stating the historical precedent for this sentiment. And of course, I'm going to combat misinformation. And I'm going to continue combating misinformation in a country that is outright hostile towards Muslims and outright hostile towards Palestinians from the actual state, right? There's anti-Semitism. This is absolutely true. Anti-Semitism is a gross hate crime. It is completely unacceptable. You and I are in agreement on this. I've combated anti-Semitism nonstop for the past 10
Do you think
years.
that there's any people that hear that and they think, you know what, that means no, we got to get rid of all the Israelis? Do you think there's anyone that believes that?
That we have to get rid of all of the Israeli Jews in that area.
From the river
Of
to the
course, I'm
sea.
sure. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so-
There are
and when
anti-Semites.
people-
There are anti-Semites in the pro-Palestinian movement.
You
Of course
think that
there
it
are.
could be potentially misconstrued?
Can it be potentially misconstrued? Absolutely. Anything can be misconstrued.
And so
Any
in that-
slogan can be
in
misconstrued.
consideration of all these things, if it can be misconstrued, if it is believed by people to mean it that way, then I don't think Jews are outside of their right to say, hey, this phraseology makes me uncomfortable, and I find it interesting. that
As
of all
you
the
feel
minorities-
uncomfortable, there's 200 kids getting bombed every day in Gaza. I think they feel more uncomfortable. Like, let's talk about your feelings when people stop fucking dying, then we can talk about it, bro. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, how about we fucking stop the fucking genocide first? It's so stupid.
You're saying a minority. You're saying a minority group, but the problem
And
here
I
is
don't
this.
think it's fair to just say, well, fuck you. I don't
because
think it's,
because
it's
the
good. And I
the
don't think it's good
conversation
for
the
Muslim
conversation
either.
revolves around Palestinians, which Muslims are a minority group in general, Palestinians an even smaller minority group, against Zionists, specifically Zionists who are maintaining the violent nature of the apartheid state in Israel. So in that structure, there are significantly more Zionists in America than there are Zionist Jews, and then there are anti-Zionist Jews. Zionist and anti-Zionist Jews are marginal because of the number of Jews in general on the planet, right? The much larger conversation is being had between Palestinian activists, which feature anti-Zionist Jews and anti-Zionists alike, some of which are anti-Semitic. I'm not going to say that they're not, okay? Versus the much broader, much larger Zionist community that is comprised almost entirely of Zionist evangelicals, Zionist Christians in general. That's the conversation
at
that's
what-
being
at
had
what
about
point-
the state of Israel. You can criticize Saudi Arabia and do it from an Islamophobic perspective, but many people are
What
never going to
point?
turn around and say you're being Islamophobic when you criticize Saudi Arabia. But when you criticize Israel, because the foreign ministry has maintained this position and this posture for a very long time, propped up by the likes of the ADL, this conflation is the immediate counter, and I think it's cynically deployed. Is there real anti-Semitism that
cynically
occurs?
deployed.
Absolutely.
It's not cynically deployed. It's not. I mean, maybe some. I don't know. I don't think so. I think
Come
Jews
on,
really
Ethan.
truly
You don't
believe
think you don't think people are cynically saying something is anti-Semitic? Do you know how many people call me an anti-Semite? There's like literally fucking groypers online who
I think Jewish people don't like that phrase. It makes them uncomfortable. It's used by Hamas. It's used by the fucking jihadist group, the Palestinian jihadist group. It's used by other extremist organizations. It's
Yes.
been co-opted. At what point, at what level of co-opting do you think it's time to phrase this out?
At what level of co-optation? I told you already. The swastika is a great example of this. The Nazis are
So
gigantic.
it's not
The
racist. So it's not racist until there's like a full mass systemic genocide of Jews.
No, it's not racist until there is a broad movement behind
racist isn't the
full-blown
right word,
ethnic
I mean.
cleansing of Jewish people. Yes, even if it's like in support, there is no in the grand scheme of things throughout the history of Palestinian emancipation, which I will reaffirm my support for. I do believe it is just and I believe it is moral. Throughout that history, Hamas is but a mere blip. Okay, Hamas is but a mere blip, and even to this day is not has never reached broad popularity. Hamas
That's not
itself is
true.
like reinstituted its charter as well. If you want to fucking believe what they're saying, it doesn't matter. But ultimately, the mantra itself predated Hamas and will continue to exist as long as there is an occupation. So having a conversation about the optics of a
listen,
slogan.
I'm
when
not
when
saying-
11,000 Palestinians have been ruthlessly slaughtered by that same state is ridiculous to me. I think
not
it's
fair.
I think it's
This
uncharitable.
characterization is super unfair. I mean, you're
Why?
making it sound like I'm a fucking like it's got nothing. The concern for it has nothing to do with what the Israeli government is doing, the ethnic cleansing and murdering of Palestinians. It's got nothing to do with that. Invoking that is not fair. 57% of Gazans, by the way, and I'm not criticizing them. I understand why people would support Hamas during all this who are in Gaza, but you say that, I mean, they have.
Yes, in 2017,
they have white support in the
Hamas
West Bank
changed its
and-
charter in
and
order to
Gaza.
gain international recognition.
It
and
has wide support in Gaza and
in
the West
in
Bank.
2017,
So
Hamas
so
changed
you're
its
saying-
charter in order to maintain its civil governance factions and also gain international recognition, as had prior terror cells like the ones that you mentioned that Ben Shapiro still considers a terrorist, like Yasser Arafat, as they try to do the exact same thing. You might not believe them. Okay, I do think that there are certainly still anti-Semitic people inside of Hamas, of course, but ultimately,
Not all of them?
Palestinian people saying that they
You
support
think there's
violent
you think there's
emancipation.
Hamas people that are secular and cool and don't hate Jews?
Do I think there are Hamas militants? Absolutely. Yes,
No, no.
100%.
No, that's not what I asked. I said, do you think there's Hamas people that are like chill and secular and they don't hate Jews?
Oh, 100%. Well, yeah. You can yell at me all day for that. I 100,000% believe it. There are fucking 18, 19-year-olds. They don't know anything except fucking bombs being blown up in their heads. That is simply that is simply a means of violent retaliation. I don't think people operate on being bad and being good. I think people operate on, holy fuck, there's a bomb blowing up in my face that killed my fucking family. I hate this fucking state, and I'm going to join whichever faction will allow me to continue fighting against this state. Not every single person is like motivated by like cleansing every Jewish person in Israel. If that was the case, they would not have tried to make a. They would not have tried. Okay, if that was the case, they would not have tried to change their charter and become more and recenter their posturing so that they can get international recognition. Whether it was going to happen or not is one other thing.
The original one was like insane.
Yeah,
Who the
yeah,
fuck's
no,
gonna support
I
that?
agree. I agree.
Open this link. I mean, this was just happened last week. If you'll pull this up,
What is this?
it's one
Memory
of the head.
reports? What the fuck is this? Oh,
It's a
God.
clip. It's just a clip of a Hamas.
Oh yeah, this is the Lebanese guy. Okay, so Hamas,
This
just
is-
like every other
Just
here.
play
Okay,
it. Just play it. Just play it.
I know. I've already played this. It's
I
gonna.
want
He's
people
gonna
to
say
see
we're gonna do
it.
1,000, 1,000,000 October 7th. Yes, I know.
Just play it. Just play it. I want people to see it.
Okay, here I'll play it right now. I think
إسرائيل
my
دولة
dog
لا
groomer
مقابل
is
على
outside.
أرضنا. إحنا هذه الدولة لابد أن نزيلها لأنه
Well,
بالفعل هي تعتبر
I'll just
كارثة
read it. 'Cause somebody has
أمنية
to
وع-
read the.
Okay, yeah, it says because of constitutional security, military, and political
ahead, go ahead.
catastrophe to the Arabs. I'm reading it.
hold
To
on,
the
hold
Arab
on,
and
hold on,
Islamic
la, la,
nation,
la,
it
la,
must
la.
be finished.
La 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 la. I can't hear you.
Ethan, this is not the own that you think it is. I've already covered this. I already talked about
I
this.
just want people to see it.
I know. I've showed this on my stream. I don't know why you
Okay,
think
let
this
me-
is like an own.
Well, do you think that every single person watching right now has seen every second of your stream?
I don't know, but okay. I mean, here we'll just probably not. We'll play it again, but I'm simply stating that, like, you know, I'll read it for you if you want. It's not like a. This
I'll
is not
read
like
it.
a
If you're
secret, though.
going outside to get your dog groomer, I can read
Yeah.
it. Okay. Right here. I'll
Oh
just
shit!
play it.
Never mind. The groomer's not even here.
Oh wait, I can't play it on your stream. Never mind.
Yeah, I can play it, but it doesn't matter. Here.
So
Okay,
the
play
groomer's
it.
not even
Play it,
here.
and if you don't
أقدمها
mind,
مرة ثانية
just
وثالثة.
reading the.
ومشان
Yeah.
حتكون طوفان
The
الأقصى
Al
أول
Aqsa
مرة.
flood is just the first time, and there will be a second, a
لا،
third,
حتكون
a
ثاني
fourth.
وثالث ورابعة لأنه إحنا لدينا إصرار ولدينا قرار
Because we have the
ولدينا
determination, the resolve, and the capabilities
أن
to fight.
نقاتل ونحارب لكن كما قلت
We will
لك،
have to pay a
بدنا
price,
ندفع ثمن
and
عنه.
yes,
إحنا
we are
مستعدين.
ready for
معلش،
it.
بقول لك بشكل
We
واضح.
are called a
إحنا
nation
اسمنا
of
شعب
martyrs,
الشهداء.
and we are
ونفرح
proud
بالشهداء.
to
إحنا لا-
sacrifice martyrs. We did not want to
لا
harm
نريد أن نمس
civilians,
لا بالمدنيين ولا أن نلحق الأذى بهم لكن أوقات لأنه في
but
تعقيدات في
but there were
الميدان صارت.
complications on the
في
ground.
منطقة موجودة
And there was a
وكان
party
هناك
in the
في
area with a
قتال
civilian
وكان في
population.
سكان وفي منطقة واسعة ليست
It was a
سهلة.
large area across 40 kilometers.
امتداد تقريبا 40
بس
كيلومتر يجب أن ننتهي
أن ينتهي
The
وين؟
occupation must come to an end. Occupation where? In the Gaza Strip.
ننتهي إلى لا بتكلم عنه كل أراضي
No, I'm
فلسطين.
talking about all the Palestinian lands.
كل الأراضي الفلسطينية يعني
Does that
جوال
mean the
إسرائيل؟
annihilation of Israel? He says, yes,
طبعاً.
of
وجود
course.
إسرائيل غير
The existence of Israel is illogical, but there's cuts in there too. I don't even know what the fuck he's saying, but it doesn't matter. He's saying a bunch of fucking psychotic, bloodthirsty shit. I
This
agree.
is one of the head. This is a guy I've seen him before. He's a spokesman for Hamas.
Yes, there are two different.
Do you
There
not
are
believe that
multiple different
Israeli
factions within
spokespeople-
Hamas right now. There are multiple
hold on,
different
hold on.
factions within
The
Hamas right
existence
now.
of hold on, let me finish it. The existence of Israel is what causes all the pain, blood, and tears. It is Israel, not us.
Do
We
you
are
want
the
me to? Do you want me to
victims
talk
of
about it? He's
occupation.
going to say 1 million October 7th as well.
He says,
It
therefore,
is
nobody
Israel,
should-
not
let
us.
me
We are
just
the
read it.
victims.
There's only like 10 seconds left.
Okay.
Therefore,
I'll
nobody
finish
should
it.
blame us for the things we do.
مش إحنا
We are the victims of the
October
occupation.
7, October 10.
Period.
لذلك ما حد
Just let me read it.
Therefore, nobody should blame us for the things
أكتوبر.
we do. On October 7th, on October 10th, on October 1 million,
10
everything we
أكتوبر
do
في
is
مليون
justified.
أكتوبر إحنا اللي بنعمل مبرر it is justified مبرر
Yeah, he even says it in English. He says, it is justified. Okay? Are you happy? Now, let's talk about it because you brought this up as though this is like an own or something. One, for as many bloodthirsty psychotic freaks exist in fucking Hamas, there is the same number of non-democratically elected motherfuckers in Israel that say the exact same shit.
Dude,
You and I are
I'm
in agreement
not
on that.
saying this to defend Israel. I'm saying it because I'm just telling you why people are uncomfortable
Okay.
with that phrase, from the river to the sea, because
I
they
know.
interpret its use like what this guy is saying, which is that from the river to sea, say that Israel will be destroyed and there'll be no Jews left in the region. Hi, Teddy. How are you, sweetheart? You have a good day?
Okay.
Yeah.
For the record, the From the River to the Sea is in the Likud Charter as well, and they do have the material. Not only do they have the support in their coalition government, but also the material realities reflect that Israel is a genocidal apartheid state. So when they say from the river to the sea,
So this phrase, when does
this
it
land
become-
belongs to Israel.
when
That
does
is a little bit more important. However, I don't even care about that sloganeering. I don't care about what Israel says either. I care about the actions. Okay.
Okay, no,
We care
well,
about-
no. You made a statement defending this slogan, and that's the
Yes,
conversation
I still
we're
defend
having.
it, and I'm
It's
still
got nothing
defending
to
it.
listen, it's got nothing to do with defending Israel or not. I'm telling you how people feel about it. So
Okay.
at what point does this statement become justifiably anti-Semitic? Your position is that once basically the government has become full-blown Nazis, or I mean, whatever, Hamas or whoever has become full-blown Nazis, only then will it be considered to be anti-Semitic, and no sooner.
No.
That's what you. Okay,
No.
So when?
This person's statements do not speak for Palestinians as a whole, and never has. He doesn't even fucking speak for Hamas. There are
Yes, he
two
does.
different factions, or multiple factions in Hamas. There's the civil
speaks for
governance
Hamas.
branch. No, Ethan. There are literally conflicting factions within Hamas. He is the more militant faction in Lebanon. Like, I'm not even defending these guys, but at least like this is not a defense of Hamas in any capacity.
this guy doesn't
But you
speak
have
for
to
Hamas?
parse through this. Of course he speaks for one faction, is what I'm trying to say. So
So
when
there's
they
two
are even
different-
divided amongst themselves,
Just tell me.
themselves,
Listen,
then like
just
obviously
tell me, at what point is this phrase allowed to be offensive? When there's like when
told
there's
you.
an
I
army
told
that's
you.
invaded? So not, you said Nazi Germany.
No, I said the level of popularity and the intentions of Palestinians have never been, historically or in contemporary society, to ethnically cleanse Jewish people out of Israel or ethnically cleanse Jews as a whole, right? Depending on who you talk to on the side of defending Israel or on the side of like genuine concern, expressing genuine concern over a statement like this,
That is
it
Hamas's
ranges
goal,
from
though.
it doesn't matter what Hamas's goals is when Hamas in and of itself in this very moment has never captured a broad
Yes, buddy.
popularity and is literally not it's not popular, it won't be popular, it will never be popular. There are Palestinian Christians living under Hamas.
one
There are
sec,
too
sorry.
many different opinions.
Oh, you're sick too. You feel okay? You think it's because your tooth hurts? Maybe you just got sick, probably. Does your throat hurt? My throat hurts. Throat hurt? Do you sleep good last night? No. You did in the night? We'll have to, we'll take it easy today and hopefully feel better. Oh, no. No fever? Okay, good. When I'm done here, we'll go hang out and take it easy and feel better. Love you.
Okay.
Alright.
There's a couple factors to consider here, okay? Like, Allahu Akbar means God is great. But for the longest time in American politics, Allahu Akbar was seen as a threat, okay? It constituted a threat. A valedictorian literally said one nation under Allah in her fucking speech a couple years back, and people got mad at her instead of saying one nation under God. We cannot massage our expectations in a morally righteous cause to to tailor the needs, to suit the needs of those who are ostensibly defending the maintenance of an unjust structure. I think it's ridiculous to concede on a point like this, especially as someone who takes anti-Semitism very seriously. I don't think that it's appropriate. Mark Lamont Hill was literally fired from CNN a couple years prior for saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free at the end of his speech at the UN. Okay? This man is a scholar. This man is a historian. He delivered a speech in front of the entirety of the United Nations, and CNN fired him. Why did they fire him?
Well, I'm assuming that you don't believe Israel has the right to exist.
I don't believe Israel has a right to exist as an apartheid state. No, I don't. I don't believe that an apartheid state can continue.
From the river to the sea essentially means the state of Israel is going bye-bye.
The reason why I brought up the historic reference point is because in its charter in 1960, I think it's like 1965, the PFLP that first implemented this slogan literally said they wanted the Zionist entity to be dismantled so that there is a democratic secular state for all Jews living in Israel and all Palestinian Muslim Christians alike. Hold on.
Who said that? TeddyFresh.com, guys. Black Friday sales going on right
Sorry,
now.
I had to get my food. Like,
What are you
do
eating?
you think that
What are you eating?
What? I just got chicken. My dad just made me chicken. Listen.
Your dad made you chicken?
Yeah. Listen.
Sick.
Listen. This is important. This is important.
Okay.
So a lot of Israelis, like you also personally mentioned, right, believe that a secular singular state would mean genocide. But you also have been reasonable and have come to terms with the Israeli fears being overrepresented in this conversation. And this is the exact same conversation being played out once again. When I talk about emancipatory movements, I feature the actual people that are being wronged in this process and not the considerations of those who are defending, maybe not directly oppressing those people who are asking for a just cause that are morally on the right side, but those who are defending those who are wronging them. I don't care about the considerations of people who defend Israel in that situation.
The Palestinians are the ones being wronged, which I agree with.
Yeah.
Then they can't be. Then they can use that phrase with. They can use phrases with impunity about Israel.
I mean, if they said, kill all the Jews, then no, of course not. That's not a phrase that they can use with impunity.
What if they said Israel shouldn't exist?
Israel shouldn't exist?
Israel shouldn't exist.
It depends. It depends contextually. It's entirely it's entirely about whether or not it is contextually appropriate. It's like the fucking OK sign. Nazis use it. You know what I mean? But contextually speaking, if you hit the fucking OK sign, that doesn't mean you're a Nazi. If someone is talking about Israel cannot exist within the framework that it currently exists, then yes.
How many people are talking about it like that though? Like I know you are, and in like your political circles and stuff, people do talk about that. But when someone out, just in the world says Israel shouldn't exist, I don't think, I wouldn't assume their intentions are always pure. That they're
precisely why I said context is appropriate. Context is
right, but in most contexts, I guess.
No, I don't think in most context. I don't agree with that. It's like saying America doesn't.
If you say
America shouldn't exist in the way that it does, is like when I say it, it's different. I'm an American citizen. When you and I can say it easily.
Though. Doesn't have any weight. There's no terrorist group trying to fucking kill Americans.
What? Yes, there. Wait, I don't get it. I thought Hamas was crossing the fucking southern border to come and destroy America.
Right.
Like,
well,
I know
it
you're
hasn't
not saying
happened
that,
yet.
but
I know it is crazy that people are saying that. I agree. It's absolutely fucking nuts that they think that. But anyway, I'm just telling you the Jewish perspective. That's why people don't.
No.
When they hear
First
from
of
the
all,
river
no, you're not
to the
telling me the
sea,
Jewish perspective. You're telling me.
I am.
No,
I am.
Ethan, you can't say it's just the Jewish perspective when.
I'm telling you because Jews, I know they're talking about Israel. But when Jews around the world hear someone say Israel shouldn't exist from the river to the sea, which is how it's interpreted, they see that, again, I keep bringing this up, they see it as a genocide.
Okay. Okay.
And so they
can I ask you a
do-
question? And
I'm
this
just
is-
telling you. I'm just telling you
Okay,
that's
okay,
what
okay.
it is.
The perspective of like like I said, it's not every single Jew or like the Jewish perspective. Jews are not a monolith. I think that it's ridiculous to make this assertion when like again, Jews, anti-Zionist Jews are at the forefront of criticizing Israel and have been using this term in perpetuity, and therefore comparing them to capos is like I think very inappropriate.
Dude, no. My point in comparing them is to say you can find support on any movement by anybody. You know, it's
No,
just
but that's not. But that's not a
it's not
broadly.
persuasive
But that's
to
not
say,
like a.
Hey, it
But
doesn't.
that's not a tiny, minuscule percentage of the Jewish population. That's a very important percentage of Jewish scholars. It's a very important percentage of Israeli scholars. It's an important percentage of
So
Jewish people
you're
in general.
saying that you know that there's a large portion of Jewish people around the world that say, "From the river to the sea."
Not a large portion of Jewish people around the world, but I don't
So how many
concern
are we
myself.
talking?
I don't concern
100?
myself with what Jewish people think about a particular slogan when I'm talking about a particular slogan that is supposed to be when I'm giving you the historical context of where the slogan comes from, not necessarily like how Jewish people perceive it, especially when Jewish people on either side of this equation are a tiny sliver of the conversation. Anti-Zionist Jews do not make up the broader movement, just like Zionist Jews do not make up the broader movement of defending Israel. It's literally we're living on a planet where
invoking that there's Jewish people that agree with you is I'm just saying I don't think it's a good argument. That's all.
no, I'm simply the reason why I mentioned that is
Sure, you
because
can find
if you
Palestinian-
consider
you
it to
can-
be if
I'm
you
sure
consider
can
it to
find
be
Arabs
an
and Palestinians
eradication
that are like in favor of the occupation too.
No, the reason why I brought that, Ethan, and the reason why I think it's a disingenuous framing to compare it to the Confederate flag, or to say that Jewish people agreed with like Hitler or whatever, is because you know a lot of these Jews who are anti-Zionist. You probably respect a lot of these Jews who are anti-Zionist. Do you think that they would actually fucking defend a phrase that unironically is pushing for their ethnic cleansing? Do you think that that is the case?
You're
I
not
ask you in all
talking
sincerity.
about a real measurable group of people. You're just using Jewish people as a token.
That's not true. That's
And who are these people?
That's-
You're talking
that's-
about 100, 200? I mean, what are we talking about
I'm talking
here?
about the tens of thousands
I
of
mean,
Jews
here,
that have been
let-
demonstrating on the streets since
And you've asked them,
since
and you've
October
asked them
9th.
how they feel about From the River to the Sea. You've polled them on that.
There are literally written. There's enough. There's so much written articles on this exact same thing, this sloganeering and what it actually means. Yes, they're the
I mean,
ones who
on
are
both
screaming
sides.
it. They are
On
the ones who
both-
are screaming it. Yes.
Really? Show me all the Jews screaming From the River to the Sea. I'd like to see a fucking video of that. Even one would actually be quite surprising. Find me one video of a Jewish person screaming From the River to the Sea.
Okay.
Go ahead. I mean, I can definitely find you a group of Palestinians or Arabs that are like, no, we should definitely occupy Gaza, and we think that Israel's totally right.
What difference is that
Because
make?
I can use them as a token too. It doesn't mean that what
Wait,
they're.
what? That doesn't
I
even make
can use
sense.
a
That doesn't even what you just said doesn't even make sense.
Why?
Here.
Find me a video of a. You know what I mean? Let's see. I want to
I
see
mean,
all
here,
these.
here. This is from Jewish Voice for Peace Action. Here, I'll send this to you as well. The full phrase is From the River to the Sea, Palestine will be free. If you believe that freedom for Palestinians means eradicating Jews, it says
Send
more about
send
you
it.
than.
Let me see it before
Okay.
you. Let me see what
This is. Do you
But
think
again,
these guys are
it's-
capos?
It's really okay.
Do you think these
I'm
guys are
opening it.
capos? They're criticizing Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
So let's see. This
Stop trying to.
this group, Jewish Voices for Peace Action. What do you know about this group?
What do you mean? What do I know about
What do
this
you-
group? This is one of the forefront. This is one of the leading advocacy movements of anti-Zionist Jews in this country. Alongside Jewish Voice for Peace, you also have Jews for Economic and Racial Freedom.
But don't you see how fucked up it is to be like, this group of people say it's not offensive, therefore the rest of you shouldn't care
No,
about it?
you asked. You said, "Show me a Jew," and
Well,
I didn't
dude,
just.
No, show me a Jew screaming From the River to the Sea. You showed me a tweet I mean, on Twitter, people brigade any fucking thing. Like, this is 36,000 likes.
This is
80%.
these guys are
If I
these guys
put
are
their
at the
other tweets-
forefront. These guys are at the
Hold on.
forefront of
Of course
anti-Zionist
there's groups.
anti-Zionist
Of
protest.
course. Of course there's groups, dude.
Ethan, you asked me
There
and
are other-
I gave
there
you
are other
an
tweets.
answer, and now
Do
you
think
don't like the answer,
do you
and now
think
you're
the
saying this
majority
is
of people retweeting that are Jewish?
that doesn't change anything. You asked
Why
me to
doesn't it change
you
anything,
asked me
dude?
you asked me for a particular you asked me to literally. First of all, there's Jews in my
I said,
chat
show
right
me a
now.
video. I said,
There-
show me
there
a
are-
video, not
There
a
are
tweet.
Jews in my chat right now that say it all the time. Not that you care, because like clearly, when I show you not just a single Jew, like you asked, but
Why do you
literally
need to
an
rely on that
entire-
argument?
literally an
why-
entire movement.
I don't
you still-
understand why you rely on that argument. It's silly.
You asked me. The reason
No,
why I'm
you-
mentioning
you
is
brought
because
it up.
do you think
You
these are
said-
bad people? Do you
No,
think
no,
these are?
You brought it up. You
Do you
said
think
there's
these are
tons of
anti-Semitic?
Jews
Do you
say
think that these
this.
are anti-Semitic Jews? Like the people
You
that are
said- You
protesting.
said there's tons of Jews that are saying this.
Yes, of course.
Show
Yeah,
me one
anti-
video of a Jewish person saying it. You sent me a tweet. You said you could find me a video.
I'm gonna literally call up Noah Colwyn to have him say it.
I don't care what one person says about it. I'm talking. You know what I mean?
Here. But you said show me a Jew. I'm showing you.
A video of a Jew screaming from the river to the sea.
Okay, I'm gonna call up Noah right now.
I don't want to talk to Noah. I don't give a fuck about who that is. I don't know anything about him.
What do you mean? I'm gonna call him so he can fucking scream it. he can scream it at you.
Okay, so
No,
you,
not the
you
Orthodox.
know one guy who will scream it. Therefore, dude, this argument you're making is fucking is ridiculous.
What do you mean the argument
Because
is ridiculous?
that's like saying if I could find a Palestinian to say the occupation is justified, then saying the occupation is justified isn't anti-Palestinian.
No, because the morality behind what he's saying is incorrect. The morality behind what from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free is correct. That's the major
Well,
difference.
That's not how the Jews see it. They see it as.
But
the
now we're having
state of-
two.
All right,
Now we're
bro,
having two separate conversations. We're having
No,
two
we're
separate
not.
conversations. If
Dude,
you and I are
I'm
both
just
in agreement of
telling you-
Palestinian emancipation, which you say you are, and I believe you, then why would, like, if you believe in Palestinian emancipation and you don't believe in a permanent occupation over Gaza, who gives a fuck if you can find a Palestinian that says no, eviscerating Gaza is correct? Like, the conversation is not on the boundaries of like Jewish people versus
don't see it
Palestinians.
as
The
a
conversation
morally
is on
just statement.
Zionism versus anti-Zionism.
The Jewish people do not interpret that as a morally just statement. I mean, obviously, that is completely subjective.
Well, the reason why I mentioned that you're wrong in this, I'm sure there are a lot of Jewish people that don't interpret it as morally just. They think that it means like
Therefore,
ethnic cleansing.
you don't
but
care
what
about
you're
anyone
supposed to
else?
do in that situation is not to immediately go, all right, well, Jewish people don't think this is appropriate, so
I'm gonna
so
go
it's
find
not
black
allowed.
people. I'm gonna go find a group of black people say the Confederate flag isn't racist. I'm gonna go find.
Ethan, please
you
stop.
know,
No,
a
don't
bunch-
do that. Don't do that.
You're,
Don't
no,
do that.
you're being ridiculous. This
No,
point is
Ethan,
fucking
you're making a
absurd, bro.
conflation that
However
makes you look
many Jews you could
horrible.
put in
Why
a
don't
room
you
to
see
agree with
this?
you means fucking nothing.
Ethan,
I'm
you're making a
telling you, I
conflation that
know.
literally makes you look so bad. Please stop doing that. Please.
Doing what? Doing what?
Stop bringing up slogans of an oppressive party in comparison to slogans that come from the oppressed side. It is a false conflation.
You,
It is
all
a
I'm
false
telling you
conflation.
is why people find it offensive. You don't want to hear it, and that's fine. Or you disagree. I'm telling you why people find
You're-
it offensive.
there-
They see it as a call for the destruction of Israel. That's how they view it.
I
and
hope
again,
you can understand what I'm trying to say,
perspective
because
of
like you're
Israelis is basically they see things through the lens of everybody wants to kill.
Do
us.
you think
And so
a black
therefore-
white supremacist that defends the Confederacy is akin to a Jewish person that is defending Palestinian
My
emancipation
point
and
is that
saying
you
this
can
slogan?
you can find anybody to agree with any
I know,
fucking point. That the existence of somebody agreeing with a point is not proof of any fucking thing. And
There
the
are-
suggestion that it
There
is
are a
stupid.
ton of white people who think Black Lives Matter means fuck all whites and only Black Lives Matter. That doesn't change the reality behind the slogan, and that doesn't change the morality behind the activism. And the same goes for Palestinian emancipation. Just because people who are in defense of Israel, okay? People who are defending Israel and its continuation of an apartheid regime because the opposite makes them feel like it's going to be genocidal, doesn't change the reality of the slogan behind it and doesn't change the morality behind the action. I am in support of Palestinians. I'm in support of all people living freely. I'm in support
Bro,
of
I am
permanent
too.
security.
Stop putting these fucking words in my mouth like I don't. The way you set that up is fucked up, and that's why people get so
No,
angry.
I'm not putting words
I'm
in your mouth,
literally,
but you're putting
I'm,
words in
I'm
your mouth.
explaining to you why people find it offensive. That's it.
Here
I'm not,
with the
you know what I mean?
Jewish boy.
I'm telling you how people interpret that, and like when people double down on it and they use it and people, it's offensive to the vast majority of Jews. I'm telling you, despite how many you know that you could fit into a room that agree with you. I'm telling you
This is going to literally, like, I'm telling you, I don't know why you won't listen to me. I'm trying to, as your friend, I'm seriously urging you to reconsider your position, because if you are,
I'm literally just explaining why people find it offensive. What is my position exactly that is a problem? What's my position that's
your
a problem?
position comes along with the false conflation that this slogan is harmful to Jewish people. A slogan that is otherwise not harmful to Jewish people can be used in an anti-Semitic fashion. A slogan that is
people believe it is harmful to them.
But that doesn't change the reality of the slogan or the fact that there are plenty of Jewish people who are in support of Palestinian emancipation who use it. It's a slogan at the end of the day for a morally righteous cause. Just because
But there's also fucking terrorists that want to kill a bunch of Jews also amongst that cause, despite it not being a lot. That's how fucking Jewish people and Israelis interpret it. I'm just telling you, dude.
Okay,
whether you
Ethan,
agree or not, I'm just explaining it.
Ethan, I know you're just explaining it, except the okay.
You're not gonna convince Jewish people that
It doesn't matter. I don't care about
It's not
convincing Jewish
offensive.
people. But first of all, I care about convincing whoever will actually listen and try to understand from a charitable perspective what I'm trying to say. But ultimately, yes, I am not going to move on this position because people are uncomfortable by this slogan, considering what the slogan actually is. There's no reason to concede. There are certain things that I find
that's not
completely
true.
unacceptable.
There are reasons. I mean,
you
like you
wrote-
said,
if you wrote From the
Hamas
River to the
uses
Sea,
it, terrorist groups use it, and so like there are reasons. Whether you agree with them or not is you're justified
Hamas
to
says
disagree.
free Palestine as well. Does that mean free Palestine means eradication of Jews? It's in their charter too.
No, it doesn't mean that.
Okay, what's the difference then?
I mean, obviously the context matters, right? Some people mean it that way.
That's
some
what I
people don't.
said. That's what I said from the start.
Right, but so free Palestine in it doesn't suggest the destruction of Israel, which is how again people interpret.
No,
it.
that's not true. Plenty of
Free
Jews plenty of Zionist Jews that I've seen think free Palestine means the destruction of Jews.
Okay.
Not just
Well,
Israel, the entirety of the international Jewish population.
I don't think that because from the river to the sea in the saying itself is people interpret it as the annihilation of Israel. That's how people see it.
Okay, when you want to understand what Black Lives Matter means, do you go to white people to ask them, or do you go to black people and ask them what it means? Who do you listen to?
Hey, what?
When you want to understand the purpose behind a slogan, do you go and ask what white people think about Black Lives Matter, or do you ask black people what they mean when they say Black Lives Matter?
I would.
When you want to understand the
Just
meaning
tell me your
behind the
point. Just
slogan
tell me your
Black Lives
point.
Matter, do you ask white people what they think it means, or do you ask black people what they think it means?
I guess I would probably just ask anyone involved in that movement. I don't know.
Okay, that's great. Are there black people in the Black Lives Matter movement that like legitimately hate white people and like maybe want to even kill them? I'm sure there are. There's one. You can find one of everything. Okay, like I'm sure.
This
Does
is
that
what you're doing essentially with your
does
there's
that
Jews, using
change?
Jews as tokens.
Does that change? No. Listen to my words. Does that change the broader movement and the morality behind Black Lives Matter, or does that change what people mean when they say Black Lives Matter?
Black Lives Matter doesn't. Again, it's what's in the phrase, dude. Saying or the thing is like, saying Black Lives Matter doesn't insinuate that other lives don't matter. It's there. It's in the fucking phrase, bro. I don't know what to tell you. From the river
to the
it's
sea,
in the
Palestine
phrase.
will be free. Also doesn't feature from the river to the sea. We
All right,
should
you know
destroy
what?
Israel and kill all the Jews. You're the one who's saying that that is the secondary implication behind it.
I'm just telling you how people see it, bro.
I know,
We
but if you
disagree.
were to tell me this is how white people feel about Black Lives Matter, I would say I don't care how white people feel in this regard, because
Yeah, but
my
Black
business is
Lives
not about
Matter,
explaining what this.
There's
my,
no
what I'm-
inherent, bro. There's nothing in Black Lives Matter that's saying that white lives don't matter in the
There's
fucking.
And
nothing
there's
from-
nothing in Palestine will be free that says nothing about Israel being free. Oh, Jesus fuck. Oh my god.
Because you're talking about from the river to the
Yes,
sea.
a lot of people
is
who are not
mainland Israel.
Palestinian and a lot of
Alright,
people who are
whatever,
not
bro.
anti-Zionist disagree. Anti-Zionists, on the other hand, don't agree, and they are the ones who are using the slogan. So why would I'm asking you, if I'm not going to ask a white person who is against Black Lives Matter, why would what they feel about this slogan? Why would I go to, in the broadest
Well, I already
majority,
explained it to
Zionists,
you.
both Jewish and Christian? Why would I ask them what they think about a Zionist, anti-Zionist slogan?
I already explained it, but you don't want to hear me.
What? No, I'm asking you. Like,
It's
why
not in the
this
the
circumstance,
fucking
why would you do
slogan
that?
itself says people interpret it as destruction of Israel. I know it doesn't say let's destroy Israel,
But it's not-
that's from the river to the sea is mainland Israel.
Okay, Ethan.
That's it, man. That's how
Ethan,
people see it.
No,
I'm not
you can't simply say that's how people see it and
It
stop
is, though.
there. But it doesn't matter how Zionists see it. What matters is how anti-Zionists speak it. Anti-Zionists of all backgrounds, just like Zionists of all backgrounds, will sometimes cynically and other times because they're misguided think that this spells the genocide of Jews. It does not.
And do you care that your chat is calling me racist? Do you make any attempt to
I have not looked at my chat.
moderate that
I
at
have
all?
not looked at my chat at all, but you
I
have
just
to understand.
opened it, but don't you have moderators? Do you care at all about what your audience says about
there's
me?
32,000 people in here right now. The reason why people are saying that is because of the conflations that you made, Ethan. That's why, like, I can't stop people from viewing you a certain way if you're gonna make these comparisons that they've heard from actually racist people. You literally implied that Jewish Voice for Peace would be akin to a capo in this
Oh,
circumstance.
you are fucking so bad faith for saying that, and fuck you for even putting that out in the world. That was
You are
not
the
my
one who made
point.
this
My
comparison.
point was that you can find anybody to defend any fucking thing. That was my point.
You also made a comparison that this slogan is akin to the swastika changed over the course of its trajectory as a symbol for Nazi Germany, and then also on top of that stated that the Confederate flag means something different to the Southern folk that want to promote heritage, not hate. Those people, when they say that, are cynically saying heritage, not hate. It doesn't mean slavery to me. Those people are in the wrong. These people that are saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, are not in the wrong. They're in the right. That's the major difference. They are morally righteous, and their slogan in and of itself is on the exact opposite side of what the Confederacy implies. That's why a better comparison would still be to make a comparison to Black Lives Matter in the way that some white people foresee or perceive Black Lives Matter. And if I'm not going to listen to what white people who are against Black Lives Matter have to say about the slogan itself, then why would I listen to people who are defending Israel on what this slogan means? Because the broadest majority of people who consider this to be an anti-Semitic slogan are, in my opinion, deploying it cynically. Not you. Not
By
you.
the way, I'm not even defending I'm not even I'm just trying to tell you guys how it feels. And I'm fucking shocked that you don't care that people in your chat are saying, "Who the fuck is this child? Cold,
Ethan,
arrogant, blind as
Ethan,
fuck."
I love you,
Why
but
don't
there's
you
only so
moderate?
much I
And
can
How
do.
can you be surprised when your Discord is literally full of fucking
Ethan, I love you, but there's
talking
only
shit
so much I
about
can do
Matt.
if you're
Like,
making that argument. You know that, right? Like, at a certain point, you're an adult, and the words that you're saying are going to be perceived by people in a certain way. I can't constantly tell my community to shut the fuck up, like,
Right, well,
which I have,
listen,
and I
I
think
do,
they should. But at the end of the day, it's because I know you personally, and I think your heart is in the right place. They don't know, so it's hard. It's hard for people to view what you're saying
you know, I'm
beyond
just
your
telling
words.
you the perspective. You disagree. That's it. I mean, what the
Okay.
fuck do you want from me?
Okay, but do you get where I'm coming from? Like, that's why I'm
agree.
trying
I
to.
understand your analysis, dude.
Okay.
I
I'm
understand
trying,
your
I want
analysis.
I don't want my community to hurt your feelings. I don't want your feelings to be hurt
Dude,
either.
they're not hurting
I
my
think you're-
feelings. They're
I
fucking.
think-
They're monsters. They're like
I think-
psychotic.
No, I think you're a good
Not
person.
all of them, but there are a lot of them, and you don't seem to care about moderating it
It's
at all.
not true.
Whereas when you're on my show, we really do care about what people say about you on
Yeah.
Discord and chat, and we moderate it to keep like a good environment. But you don't seem to fucking care about
There's
it.
no way I can
You
shut
don't
off
have
my
moderators.
chat. I mean, I can put it in emote mode, but that's it.
You
Just
not have
like you shut off
moderators?
your chat. Just like
You
you shut off your chat when these sorts of conversations happen in an effort to stop bad faith pieces of shit. You can put it in emote mode, which is what I'm doing now. But ultimately, you have to realize that when there's 33,000 people, and it's not even YouTube, it's literally fucking Twitch, so that it's even faster, it's almost impossible to moderate because people are going to perceive what you're saying in a certain way. This is not like. There's only so much moderation I can do if you make that comparison.
Do you have moderators in your chat? I don't understand. I didn't make any fucking comparison, dude. I'm literally just explaining how people feel about it. That's all I'm fucking doing, man. And you continue to put words in my mouth, making it seem like I'm comparing them to fucking Jewish Nazis and shit.
Hold on.
It's so fucked up. It's not
my
fair.
number's here.
And
My
when you
number's
say
here.
that
Hold on.
shit, then people in your chat are obviously gonna co-sign it, and they're gonna fucking, think that, as I quoted, the Zionist fucking freak pig. I mean, I don't know. For the record, I understand the analysis. Right? That it's not anti-Israel or anti-Semitic. I understand. And I agree with his analysis, actually. I do. I'm explaining why Jewish people around the world find it offensive. And I can tell you guys, most Jews do find it offensive because the way they interpret it, which is the destruction of Israel. That's how they interpret it, whether it's meant that way or not. And I think that it's worth, acknowledging that that's how people feel about it. Keep using it. But
Sorry, I was gone.
I'm
I had
talking to the
that.
audience.
Can you hear me?
I'm telling the audience because I don't think I can.
You know why? But can I
I'm just explaining to the audience that I'm simply explaining why people interpret it to be anti-Semitic or anti-Israel because of the insinuation that it is from the river to sea. They interpret it as it being a call for the destruction of Israel. You can use that phrase, and I agree with your analysis, Hassan, that you know what I mean, that people can use that phrase. It's okay, you know what I mean? I'm just explaining the perspective. If you care to respond to it or not,
No, I get the
if you want to keep
perspective.
using the phrase, that's fine. You know what I mean?
I get the
perspective. I don't like that people act like it's so fucking shocking that when Jewish people see that and interpret it one way. It's not fair to make them seem like crazy Zionist
But if you see
interpreting it that way.
If you see my explanation of this, and if you hear Palestinians explain this term and this slogan and what it means to them and the history of the slogan, right? And instead of going, oh wow, I didn't think about that. Actually, maybe I'm in the wrong here. I would rather listen to those who are anti-Zionist Palestinians and also American Jews and Western Jews who are anti-Zionist alike. If they all are if they all have this kind of perspective overall, then if you are also on the side of the emancipation of Palestinians, don't you think that the better thing to do here would be to educate people to ensure that there's not any further like misunderstandings on the front? Because that's the reason why I make this statement. That's the reason why I try to educate people when there's a sea of counterfactuals and counter narratives that simply claim unconditionally that this is like anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic people can
I
use
disagree.
this. I do agree.
I disagree that it's unconditionally anti-Semitic. But do you understand why some people might find that like a scary phrase to hear around the world? Around the world.
But
Okay,
people
good.
also, but people
all you
also
have to
think,
say.
I know, but people also think Free Palestine is a scary phrase.
Oh, okay, so you acknowledge that Jews around the world, you can understand why they would see that and can think of it as a scary phrase to them. It would make them uncomfortable.
Yes, just like
That's
Just like
it.
Black Lives Matter can be an uncomfortable phrase for people, but it doesn't change my mentality around the phrase if someone asks me.
Okay, whatever, bro. I don't know.
You know, whatever. That's not whatever. That's very important.
We're just talking in circles. We've already talked about this shit.
I know, but it's important because I don't want you to think like I don't want you to think that I'm like cynically or in a weird way, just like being like, no, anti-Semitism is like totally fine actually with this one phrase.
You won't make any fucking concessions, and it's crazy. Like I make so many fucking concessions to you all the time from my heart, and I listen and I fucking try to move towards your side every time. And it's not that fun to talk to you about it when it's like that.
Okay. I think the reason why it comes across as one-sided, even though it's not one-sided either, is because we're broadly in agreement. But I agree. But the potential fears that this might invoke in people who are otherwise misguided and propagandized against this phrase by those who have a cynical reason to tie this to Judaism in general is the reason why I try to educate people on the matter. Is the reason why when you and I are in disagreement, I want to explain it to you in all sincerity. I do not discount the fact that Jewish people might hear this. Otherwise, good faith and even, I guess, anti-Zionist or maybe critical, Jewish people who are critical of Israel, let's say, might hear this and think, oh, this seems anti-Semitic to me because I've been told it's anti-Semitic. But I think making a concession on this and saying, you know what, you're right. Some people are afraid of the slogan, so that must mean it's anti-Semitic, is incorrect when it's not reflective of its history.
Understand why a large amount of Jews think that slogan is offensive to them.
I know, but just like with the one-state
That's it.
solution conversation,
Like I'm just asking, I'm just trying to like connect a fucking bridge at all between
I do
understanding. You can use that phrase. I'm not even disagreeing. But like if we're trying to actually like make bridges and fucking understand each other, you not being able to even concede why Jews around the world could interpret that way seems, like it's not productive at all. Like you don't want to fucking see it from anyone's perspective.
But I do understand it, which is why I try to work against this counter narrative, this counterfactual. That's what I'm saying. I try to use the privilege that I have, the platform that I have, to deliver a voice for a group of people that are never really heard at all.
I think peace and progress happens when we connect and have empathy for each other. That's it. I'm explaining to you why Jews around the world might find that offensive, and and that's it. I think that it would be good to try to understand that. But
the question I have is this.
But I don't care to keep talking about it because we just keep talking in circles.
Okay, well, here, I'll tackle it from a different angle.
All right. I gotta go soon anyway. My throat is fucking killing me.
Okay, well, I'm sorry that we couldn't make peace on this one issue.
Yeah.
And I hope that
It's just I just find it really fucked up how people are going to interpret this now. And I think based on some of your analysis, as me like comparing fucking Palestinian activists to like Jewish Nazis or something. You know, and like I'm not even fucking saying don't use the phrase. I'm simply trying to explain the perspective. And like you don't, if you don't want to hear the perspective, if you don't want to empathize at all with people that find it offensive, then conversing is kind of pointless.
I don't.
Like I feel like I'm just explaining it, man. And you know I'm not a fucking radical Jew. I'm not even a religious Jew.
No,
I have
I
no
know.
fucking, I have no stake in the game. And this is coming
Posizione
from
oggi.
I know. I know. All right.
sorry, I don't know why I get so fucking emotional lately.
You all right? We don't have to continue if you don't want to. If you don't feel like it.
Anyway,
I think this is the reason why I originally wanted to potentially feature Jewish voices in this conversation, because I feel like that would be. I feel as though that would be more productive. Even Israeli voices, as a matter of fact, and we can still do that at a later date if you'd like.
I just, I'm not like a fucking I'm not a sensitive Jew. I never scream anti-Semitism about anything.
No, I
So
know.
like, you can't. I don't even think it's fair to characterize like. I'm just telling you how people see it. That's all
Ethan,
I'm doing.
I know. I never
You
said that.
disagree. Clearly, that's it, and that's fine.
I don't, Ethan. I've never said any of those things against you, and I don't believe that. Okay, I'm not saying that at all. I'm simply trying to describe the position of Palestinians in this matter, on this front. And
You've
and
done
not
that,
just
and I
Palestinians,
understand, bro.
but
I
anti-Zionists as a whole.
understand. I understand. I've listened to you. I agree. That's it.
Okay. As far as being conciliatory on this front goes, I think that's the reason why it'd be better served to have this conversation not with myself, but with an anti-Zionist Jewish person,
Why does it matter if they're Jewish?
because I'm not Jewish, and you've said in this conversation that, like, how can you tell me how to feel about the situation?
Yeah, but how is one person representative of Jews at large?
I think that they'll be they can talk about it from a more united perspective, and give you more give you additional feedback and additional information.
Here, I'm
that
just
maybe
gonna.
I'm
This
not.
person said, "Okay, we don't give a fuck if they interpret it like that, because they're fucking brain dead genocidal freaks." It's like understanding a fucking Nazi's perspective that emancipation for minorities is a threat to their existence. Get the fuck out of here.
Yes,
So-
because this is, and for the record, that is the perspective of someone who is not speaking about Jewish people. He's talking about Zionists. This is the difference, and
Bro.
the number of
the
Christian
way, that-
Zionists far outnumber the number of Jewish Zionists
How,
as a
how
whole.
are the by the way, how do you honestly expect the mods to keep the discourse like in any way like civil? That was a comment left by your mod.
Which mod said that?
I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, why'd you bring it up?
No,
It-
I'm not
it does
trying to
matter.
snitch. Okay.
But
It was-
ultimately, you have to understand that the reason why people feel this way is because this is not like this community, these very same moderators, this entire moderation team has been tackling anti-Semitism for 4 or 5 years at this point. Like
Rogan says
they're not
Ethan is so-
anti-Semitic. They're not saying
Rogan,
this because
another
they're like,
mod says Ethan is so bad faith. What have I been bad faith about? Like, I genuinely don't understand that.
the way that
What-
people perceive your do you think people across the board are geared towards hating you here in this community, in my community in general? Do you think that I don't yell at them regularly and try to tell them not to have these kinds of perspectives? The reason why people feel the way that they do is because after a certain point,
What have I said that's bad faith?
I think you want me to be totally honest.
Yeah.
No kitty gloves. Okay.
Fuck you, bro.
No.
That insinuation is so stupid, man.
No. Please don't get mad at me. I'm gonna
Am I
be
fucking
100.
moron? You just talk down to me the whole time?
No, absolutely not. I think you're a very smart person, but you do get a little
Alright,
emotional
take off
on
your
this
kitty
issue.
gloves that's on. Tell me.
Okay, I think that what you said about the "From the River to the Sea" being akin to a Nazi slogan, or the fact that it's a Confederate flag, those comparisons, because I know you personally and because I know you're an empathetic person, because I don't think you're a bad faith person at all, but anyone else that says something like that, it's going to come across, especially from the people that don't know who you are and what you represent, it's going to come across like you are making a bad faith argument that Ben Shapiro would make, or any number of other conservatives would make in this circumstance. Of course people feel this way because they don't see your reconciliation process. They don't see that, like, you go back on information and you internalize it and you think about it and you come out with an honest perspective. They only see clips of you. They will see clips of you making that comparison, and
How is that bad faith? You're saying people take it out of context. That's not the same thing as being bad faith.
Well, I don't think it's being taken out of context because you're saying this in defense of bastardizing the perspective of Palestinians, or minimizing the voice of Palestinians, Muslims, and anti-Zionist Jews, and the rest of the anti-Zionist movement by trying to say, no, this is what it actually means. This is how it's being perceived by the other side. What it actually is perceived by the other side, the broader Zionist movement as a whole, does not change the reality of what this message means. It simply is used as another reason to silence any kind of emancipatory slogan and any kind of opposition. People feel like they can't say anything. People feel like they can't. People can't push for a ceasefire. The government's not listening to them. People can't even say free Palestine from the river to the sea because, like, then this is technically considered anti-Semitic. Like, what should happen? Is there a boundary and a guideline that maybe the ADL could put forward that people can write?
I am not advocating for any speech. I'm just giving you my perspective. I'm not saying don't say any of that shit. I'm just telling you how Jewish people around the world interpret that phrase. That's it.
I think if you were to ask anti-Zionist Jews how they interpret the slogan,
I'm talking about
versus Zionist Jews, the difference would be stark.
So you're saying because of this group doesn't find it offensive that the other... I'm not saying they're right. You're saying this group of people finds it offensive, therefore they're wrong? I mean, I'm just telling you how they feel. I mean, it's just feelings,
because it is an anti-Zionist slogan. That's why I think listening to anti-Zionists in this front is very important.
And again, this is the way people hear it. At a certain point,
also, what you're saying,
genociding all the Jews there does become anti-Semitic. And I'm not saying that's what anybody there wants to do.
Of course, genociding all the Jews is anti-Semitic. That's insane.
That's how people perceive it, especially people in Israel.
No, but people also perceive free Palestine to be the same. You yourself admitted that people in... Okay, you don't. But
I don't think it's the same. People don't perceive it.
You literally said a one-state solution is untenable, regardless of the morality of it, because people in Israel consider that to be akin to a possible genocide. You openly stated that paranoia is not a justifiable one, and yet people still feel it in their hearts. You cannot set the boundaries on an emancipatory movement by the unreasonable fears that people have about that slogan, because, or any slogan whatsoever, because ultimately it turns into, unless it's like directly violent and it's an incitement of violence, in which case, of course, unacceptable. Because at a certain point, this becomes an optics conversation that is used as a cudgel to like just fucking forcibly squash any kind of opposition, and that's already happening. In America, it's not happening. We still have some semblance of free speech. But in Europe, in different parts of the world, people are literally fucking getting apprehended. They're getting detained for saying from the river to the sea. So in my opinion, having this back and forth in good faith and having a conversation about it is fine. But that doesn't even change the reality or even break through the dam of the sea of people that are demanding a ceasefire, that want to stop the occupation, that want to end the apartheid, that has currently in this iteration, in this last iteration, in the siege, has killed almost 11,000 people with 4,000 children.
Bro, don't
And I
bring
know
that up
you-
like, as
and
some
I know you
fucking
don't
talking
think-
point against me. Because
No,
again,
I know
in its
you don't
genuine,
agree with
I don't
that.
give a
I
fuck
know you
about
don't
that.
agree with that. I know you don't agree with that. I know. I'm not saying you do at all. I know you don't agree with that, and that's precisely why
Alright,
I'm
listen,
saying just listen
listen.
to the Palestinians in this front
Okay, I'm listening to Palestinians
and anti-Zionist Jews.
and anti-Zionist Jews.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I don't wanna fight. I think this is like, I mean, it sucks, and I'm sorry that I made you feel a certain way. I'm sorry that my community
You know,
made you
it's
feel a
not
certain
like-
way. No, it's fucked up. I don't want you to. I think you're a good person. Just understand that people don't know the empathy that you have, and they simply see, you know, similar talking points that they've heard from others that don't demonstrate that same empathy that you do when you're delivering their perspective here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to have a conversation about it. I'm just trying to be honest and open and like, you know,
I agree. I respect it, which is why I wanted to have this conversation to begin with. I hope you don't think that I'm like, you know, harboring resentment or trying to get my fucking community to hate you. I'm working in the exact opposite direction.
well, I don't think your mods have a very vested interest in aligning their goals with yours.
I need to rest.
I'll talk to them about it as well. But ultimately, there's a reason, and that is because they've heard this sentiment expressed by others, and they don't know you.
Here's
personally.
another mod. C-Max says, you're just showing you're a Zionist, Ethan. There's another one saying, shrug dog, I don't care about your feelings. It's fair. Yeah, I'm not taking it back, says Fish. Frogan said, I forget what she said, that I'm a Zionist or something like that.
The talking
I'm literally
points that
just
you've
trying to explain
demonstrated,
why
the
people
talking
feel that
points that
way.
you've demonstrated come across like you are in defense of Israel, and they are identical to the talking points that those who support Israel
When
put
did I
forward.
defend Israel?
But I know you're not. I know.
When?
I,
No, when? You said it can be when?
No, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I know you're not. I know you personally. I know what you represent. I know the values that you represent. I know that you're empathetic. The talking points that you bring forward, however, are identical to the same talking points that I literally spent the entire day dissecting. That's the difference. That's why people see that and they automatically ascribe bad faith, you know, bad faith to what you're saying.
Like what though? What's a talking point that you'd hear Ben Shapiro say?
Where do I begin? I think that the from the river to the sea conversation, every single thing that you brought up, I've heard from. I mean, if I pulled up a Ben Shapiro video right now, he'd probably say identical things.
Right. And on that one, I'm just saying, as a member of the Jewish community at large, and myself being a moderate, fucking secular, non-religious, unsensitive to a not like desensitized to anti-Semitism for being on the internet so long. Like, I'm just giving you perspective. You disagree with it, and that's fine. But you can't argue about how people feel. You know, it's an
No,
emotional.
I know.
It's an emotional thing.
I know.
That's what it is.
And I'm not even trying to argue about how people feel. I'm saying I'm not trying to argue about how people feel. I'm trying to explain what the historical what the historical background of that sentiment is, and how it's being
So
oftentimes
what else
cynically.
other than that? What else other than that?
It's mostly
I,
that.
I
It's
know
that-
Ben Shapiro says that. Listen, I'm just telling you the perspective. What else did I say that would
I think I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of your your takes. Like I
today,
genuinely
you-
don't know.
you said that the
Today
stuff
is
I was
just the river
saying-
to the sea thing, for
Okay.
sure. That's it.
You made it sound like
beyond that,
today
beyond
in
that,
our
I think like
conversation I was echoing all kinds of talking points that suggest that I'm defending Israel.
wait.
And I don't remember
I
doing
didn't say
that.
that. I'm talking specifically about river to the sea thing. But as far as like a two-state solution goes, I think you're or a one-state solution goes. Like even having that conversation alone implies that you're not a Zionist. So I don't know why.
Dude, I literally conceded to you that the one state might
No,
make more
I know,
sense.
Ethan. I
Like,
know.
what the
I'm
fuck, man?
telling you that I don't feel that way anyway. I'm not coming from it from that perspective at all. I'm also eating now. I'm just letting you know. But
Yeah, I can see. It's fine. All right, I do have to go. I mean, I don't know I don't know if this was productive or anything really at all. My sense of this is that I'm gonna probably deeply regret having this conversation, but that's what it is.
Ethan, I love you. I wanted to talk to you beforehand, so we can just like.
Díky za sledování. Pardon, že to nebylo moc komunikativní, ale tahle konverzace mě fakt zajímá.
I'm not.
That's what I
Dobranoc.
wanted to talk about.
What?